Picture this. It's around 1300 BCE, give or take a century. Ancient chronology is more art than science. And honestly, everyone's just guessing at this point. You are standing in the Nile Delta, Lower Egypt. The sun is already unbearable, and it's only mid-morning. The air smells like wet earth and sweat and something else. Something acrid, burning straw maybe, or desperation. Welcome to the world that needed Moses. But Moses doesn't exist yet. He won't for a while. And honestly, that's the point. Before we get to burning bushes and parted seas and staffs turning into serpents, we need to understand the machinery that made those miracles necessary in the first place. So let's slow down. Let's sit in the heat for a moment. Let's talk about bricks. If you find comfort in slow, thoughtful stories, the kind that unfold without urgency, where details matter more than drama, I'd be honored if you subscribed. This is a space for the unhurried mind, for the kind of listener who doesn't need explosions to stay engaged, just mud and straw and the slow, grinding machinery of empires. Egypt, at this point in history, is the undisputed superpower of the ancient Near East. They've been around for over 1,000 years. Dynasties have risen and collapsed and risen again. Pharaohs come and go like seasons. But the system is eternal. And the system runs on construction. Temples, granaries, monuments, storage cities. Every pharaoh wants to be remembered. And you don't get remembered by being modest. You get remembered by building something so massive, so absurdly over-engineered, that people 3,000 years later will still be taking selfies in front of it. But here's the thing about monuments. Someone has to build them. And in Egypt, that someone is you. If you happen to be one of the Israelites living in the land of Goshen. Let's talk about how you got here. A few generations ago, maybe 4, maybe 5, the timeline gets fuzzy. Your ancestors came to Egypt voluntarily. There was a famine, a bad one, the kind that turns soil to dust and makes people do desperate things. The kind where you watch your livestock die and your children's ribs start to show through their skin, and you realize you have exactly 2 options, move or perish. But Egypt had grain. Egypt always had grain thanks to the Nile's annual flooding. So your great-great-great-grandfather Jacob packed up the family and moved south. They were welcomed, fed, given land in Goshen, a region in the Nile Delta that was fertile and relatively pleasant. It was supposed to be temporary, a few years maybe, just until the famine passed. Except they stayed, and then they multiplied. This is where things get uncomfortable for Pharaoh. Because the Israelites, nomadic shepherds by origin, people who spent most of their history wandering around with goats, turn out to be very good at having children. Large families, lots of sons, lots of daughters who grow up and have lots of sons. Within a few generations, the Israelite population explodes. We're talking exponential growth, the kind of demographic boom that makes census takers nervous. And Pharaoh starts to get nervous. Here's the thing you need to understand about Egypt's location. It's both a blessing and a curse. To the west, the Libyan desert, hostile, unforgiving, full of raiders who occasionally decide to test Egypt's borders. To the east, the Sinai Peninsula, and beyond that, the great empires of Mesopotamia, Babylon, Assyria, the Hittites. These are not friendly neighbors. These are rivals, threats, empires that would very much like to add "conquer Egypt" to their resume. Egypt is constantly at war, or preparing for war, or recovering from war. It's exhausting, expensive, paranoia-inducing. And Goshen, the region where the Israelites live, sits right on the eastern edge of the kingdom, right on the border, right in the path of any invading army that might come from Asia. So Pharaoh does the math. He looks at this massive, rapidly growing population of foreigners living on his most vulnerable border. He imagines a scenario where Egypt's enemies invade from the east. He imagines the Israelites, who have no particular loyalty to Egypt, who still speak their own language, who worship their own God, siding with the enemy. It's not an irrational fear. It's just preemptive cruelty disguised as national security. The ancient version of they're a threat, so let's neutralize them before they become a problem. So Pharaoh makes a decision. If the Israelites are going to live in Egypt, they're going to work. Slavery in ancient Egypt is not like the chattel slavery of the American South. It's more bureaucratic, more systematized. You're not necessarily bought and sold at auction. You're assigned, conscripted, added to the labor roles like you're a line item in a spreadsheet. The Israelites become state laborers, forced into the kind of work that is both essential and soul-crushing. Construction. Specifically, they're put to work building storage cities. Pithom and Ramesses, the Bible calls them. Massive complexes designed to hold grain, weapons, supplies. Infrastructure for an empire that never stops expanding. And the building material of choice, mud bricks, this is where we slow way down. Because if you want to understand the world that needed Moses, you need to understand what it felt like to make a brick. Not just once, not just for a day, every single day, for years. So let's walk through it. You start with Nile mud. The Nile floods every year, depositing rich, dark silt along its banks. This is the lifeblood of Egypt. This is what makes the fields fertile, what makes Egypt the breadbasket of the ancient world. But it's also sticky, heavy. It clings to your hands, your feet, your ankles, like it's trying to pull you down into the earth itself. You dig it out with wooden tools, shovels if you're lucky, your bare hands if you're not. You scoop it into baskets, woven reed baskets that cut into your palms if you're not careful, and haul it to the mixing area. Your back hurts. It's only been an hour, and your back already hurts. There's a specific kind of ache that comes from bending over, lifting, bending over, lifting, over and over. It starts in your lower spine and radiates outward. By midday, you won't be able to stand up straight, but you're not at midday yet. You're just getting started. Here's the thing about mud bricks. Mud alone doesn't hold its shape. It cracks as it dries, crumbles, falls apart. You need a binder, something to give it structure. In Egypt, that binder is straw. Chopped straw mixed into the mud acts like a primitive form of rebar. It holds the brick together as it dries in the sun. Without it, your bricks are useless. Without it, the quota doesn't get met. And if the quota doesn't get met, the taskmasters notice. So you chop straw, or you beg for straw, or, if you're unlucky, if Pharaoh's in a particularly cruel mood, you're told to go find your own straw, in addition to making the bricks, in addition to meeting the same impossible quota you had yesterday. This, by the way, is not hypothetical. This is literally a plot point we'll get to later in Moses' story. But for now, just know this. Straw matters. Straw is currency. Straw is survival. You dump the mud and the straw into a pit. A shallow pit, really. Just a depression in the ground. Then you mix it. With your feet. You step into the pit, barefoot, because no one's giving you sandals for this, and you stomp. You churn the mixture with your legs, feeling the mud squelch between your toes, the straw scratching at your ankles. It's heavy work. The mud resists you. It sucks at your feet, tries to hold you in place. You have to lift each foot with effort, like you're walking through wet cement, which, in a way, you are. And the sun, God, the sun, it's directly overhead now. The delta in summer is an oven. There's no shade, no breeze, just heat radiating up from the ground and down from the sky. And you're caught in the middle of it, sweating through your tunic, your skin burning. You're not alone in the pit. There are other men stomping beside you. Your brother maybe, your cousin, a neighbor from Goshen. You don't talk much. Talking takes energy, and you need all your energy for the work. But sometimes someone mutters under their breath, a prayer maybe, or a curse. It's hard to tell the difference anymore. Once the mud and straw are mixed, once the consistency is right, once it holds together without being too wet or too dry, you scoop it into wooden molds, rectangular molds, about the size of a modern loaf of bread, maybe a little bigger. You pack the mud in tight, press it down with your hands, smooth the top. Then you flip the mold over and tap it out onto the ground. 1 brick. You're supposed to make, let's say, 50 bricks today, maybe more. The quota changes. It's always changing. The taskmasters keep raising it because there's always another wall to build, another storage room to line, another monument to Pharaoh's eternal glory. You've made 10 so far. It's noon. You do the math. You have to keep moving. The bricks sit in the sun for several days. They bake, harden, transform from wet mud into something solid enough to build with. But they're fragile. If it rains, and it almost never rains in Egypt, but if it rains, the bricks can melt back into mud. Days of work, gone. So you pray it doesn't rain. You also pray the bricks don't crack, because cracked bricks don't count toward your quota. And if your quota isn't met, you get beaten. This is not an exaggeration. The taskmasters carry rods, sticks, wooden staffs that double as weapons. They use them liberally. The threat of violence is constant, ambient, like the heat. You don't even think about it anymore. It's just part of the landscape. The sun, the mud, the sticks. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. And the next day. And the day after that. For years. This is your life now. This is the life of your father, your brother, your son. This is the inheritance of being an Israelite in Egypt. You are a brick-making machine. And machines don't get tired. Machines don't complain. Except you do get tired. Your muscles ache in ways you didn't know muscles could ache. Your hands bleed from the rough texture of the straw. Your feet are raw from stomping in the mud pit. At night, you collapse onto your sleeping mat and you can't even move. Your wife brings you water. Your children stare at you with wide eyes, trying to understand why their father looks so broken. But the quota doesn't care. The empire doesn't care. Pharaoh, sitting in his palace in Memphis or Thebes or wherever he happens to be, doesn't care. Let's talk about the guys with the sticks, the taskmasters. They're Egyptian overseers. They're not high-ranking officials. They're not nobles or priests. They're more like ancient project managers, middle management in hell. Their job is to make sure the Israelites keep working, keep producing, keep meeting the quota. They're not trying to be cruel. Well, some of them are. Some of them genuinely enjoy the power. But mostly, they're just doing their jobs. They have quotas too. If the Israelites don't produce enough bricks, the taskmasters get blamed. And they really don't want to get blamed. So they push, they shout, they hit. It's a system that turns everyone into either a victim or a collaborator. There's no middle ground. And beneath the taskmasters, there are Israelite foremen, men chosen from among the slaves to supervise their own people, to be the buffer between the Egyptians and the workers. These foremen are in an impossible position. If they're too soft, the Egyptians beat them. If they're too harsh, their own people hate them. They're hated by both sides. It's a brilliantly efficient system of oppression. Pharaoh doesn't even have to get his hands dirty. Here's the cruelest part. The work is never done. There's always another project, another storage city, another temple, another monument to Pharaoh's eternal glory. You finish one wall, and they tell you to start another. You complete one building, and they assign you to the next. There's no end date, no parole, no just 5 more years and you're free. This is it. This is forever. Unless something changes. Unless someone comes. But Pharaoh isn't satisfied with just enslaving the Israelites, because they're still multiplying. Despite the hard labor, despite the misery, despite everything, Israelite women keep having babies, lots of babies. It's almost defiant, in a way. The worse the conditions get, the more children are born. Maybe it's biological, maybe it's cultural, maybe it's sheer stubbornness. Whatever it is, it's working. And Pharaoh realizes that slavery alone won't solve his problem. If anything, it's making it worse. He's created a massive underclass of resentful, physically strong laborers who outnumber his own people. So he decides to go further. He calls in the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. Their names will be remembered. 2 women trying to help other women through the most vulnerable moments of their lives. And he gives them an order. When you're helping Israelite women give birth, check the baby's gender. If it's a girl, let her live. If it's a boy, kill him. Just quietly. Make it look like a complication, an accident, a stillbirth. The midwives, to their eternal credit, refuse. They fear God more than they fear Pharaoh, and they let the boys live. They come up with excuses. They lie. They say the Hebrew women give birth too quickly, before the midwives can even arrive. It's a brilliant bit of civil disobedience. Pharaoh is furious, so he issues a public decree. Every Israelite boy born must be thrown into the Nile, not quietly, not secretly, publicly, as a warning. The Nile is Egypt's gift, its God, its lifeline, the river that brings life to the desert, the river that floods every year and makes the fields fertile, the river that is worshipped, celebrated, honored. It's also now a place of death. Imagine being a mother in Goshen. You've just given birth to a son. He's tiny, fragile, perfect. His fingers curl around yours. His eyes haven't even opened yet. And you know that if the Egyptian soldiers find him, they will take him to the river. They will throw him in. And the Nile, which gives life to Egypt, will swallow him whole. This is the world that needed Moses. A world where empires are built on the backs of the enslaved, where quotas matter more than lives, where even a newborn baby is a threat to be eliminated, where the most sacred thing, a mother's love for her child, can be overruled by a paranoid king's decree. It's a world of mud and straw and blood and fear, a world where hope is a dangerous thing to hold on to. And into this world, this crushing, grinding, unbearable world, a baby will be born, a baby in a basket, a baby who shouldn't survive, but does. We'll get to him next. For now, just sit with this. The heat, the mud, the endless, repetitive work, the fear that never quite goes away. This is where the story begins. Not with miracles, but with misery. Not with salvation, but with suffering. Because you can't understand the rescue until you understand what people needed to be rescued from. And now you do. There's a woman in Goshen named Jochebed. She's probably in her 30s, maybe younger. It's hard to say. Life as a slave ages you quickly. The sun, the work, the constant fear. She has 2 children already. A daughter, Miriam, maybe 10 or 11 years old, and a son, Aaron, a few years younger. Both of them somehow survived Pharaoh's earlier attempts at population control. They were born before the decree got really brutal, before the river became a graveyard. Now she's pregnant again. And she knows, even before the baby is born, that this is going to be a problem. She can feel it in the way the baby moves, strong, insistent, the kind of kicks that suggest this child has opinions and isn't afraid to share them. And call it intuition, call it mother's instinct, but she knows. It's a boy. The labor is quick. Hebrew women, as the midwives told Pharaoh, give birth fast. It's not entirely a lie. When you've spent your whole life doing physical labor, your body is efficient. Brutal, but efficient. The baby comes at night. That's intentional. Fewer people around. Less chance of someone hearing the cries and reporting it to the soldiers. Jochebed's husband Amram is there. Miriam too. They've turned this into a covert operation. No midwife this time. Too risky. Just family. And when the baby finally arrives, slick and screaming. Jochebed doesn't cry. She doesn't have time to cry. She wraps him quickly, quietly, presses him to her chest and prays he'll stop screaming before someone hears. He does, eventually. Babies are smarter than we give them credit for. Or maybe he just exhausts himself. Either way, the house falls silent, and Jochebed makes a decision. She's going to hide him. Now, you might be thinking, how do you hide a baby? Babies are not subtle. They cry. They need to be fed constantly. They have a remarkable talent for making noise at the worst possible moments. But Jochebed is desperate, and desperate people get creative. She keeps him in the house, in a small room, away from windows. She nurses him constantly, trying to keep him satisfied, keep him quiet. When he cries, she muffles the sound with blankets. With her own body, she sings to him soft, low songs, lullabies that are really just prayers set to music. Miriam helps. She's old enough to understand what's at stake. She stands guard, watches for soldiers, distracts neighbors when they get too curious. This goes on for 3 months. 3 months of holding your breath every time your baby makes a sound. 3 months of jumping at every knock on the door. 3 months of living in a constant state of low-grade terror. And then, one day, Jochebed realizes she can't do it anymore. The baby is getting bigger, louder, harder to hide. It's only a matter of time before someone hears him, before a neighbor reports them, before soldiers come and rip him from her arms and throw him into the Nile. She can't let that happen. She won't. So she decides to take him to the Nile herself, but on her terms. Here's where things get interesting, because Jochebed doesn't just walk down to the river and drop her baby in the water. She's not giving up. She's improvising. She's building something. A basket. Not just any basket. A very specific kind of basket. And she's going to spend days making it perfect. Let's talk about the basket, because this is where the boring detail matters. This is where you see a mother's love translated into reeds and pitch. The basket has to float, obviously, but it also has to be waterproof and sturdy and small enough to be portable, but large enough to hold a 3-month-old baby comfortably. Jochebed starts with papyrus reeds. The Nile is full of them. They grow along the banks, tall and thick. She collects them herself, early in the morning before the sun gets too hot. She wades into the shallow water, cutting reeds with a small knife, bundling them under her arm. The reeds are wet, heavy. They smell like river water, like mud and fish and growing things. She brings them home and lays them out to dry. Not completely dry. Papyrus needs to retain some flexibility or it'll snap when you weave it. Just dry enough to work with. The weaving takes hours, days really. She sits in the corner of the house, her fingers moving in a rhythm she's known since childhood. Over, under, pulling the reeds tight, checking for gaps. Miriam sits with her sometimes, watches, asks quiet questions about what she's making, and Jochebed answers just as quietly that she's making a boat. The basket takes shape slowly. It's oval, maybe 3 feet long, deep enough that the baby won't roll out, shallow enough that it won't tip over in the current. But papyrus alone isn't enough. Papyrus is porous. Water will seep through, so Jochebed needs to seal it. She uses pitch, tar, the same stuff they use to waterproof the seams of boats. It's thick, black, sticky. It smells terrible, like burnt wood and chemicals. It gets on everything. Her hands, her clothes. It's impossible to wash off completely. She spreads the pitch across the bottom of the basket, carefully, methodically, pushing it into every gap, every weak spot. She lets it dry. Then she adds another layer, and another. The basket becomes waterproof, unsinkable, a tiny ark for a tiny passenger. Inside the basket, she lays a soft cloth, a blanket, something to cushion the baby, something to keep him warm. She's thought of everything, except, of course, what happens after she puts him in the river. The morning comes. Jochebed wakes early. The baby is still sleeping. She nurses him one last time, holds him close, memorizes the weight of him, the smell of him, the way his tiny hand curls round her finger. Then she wraps him in the blanket, places him gently in the basket. He doesn't cry. Maybe he senses this isn't the time. Maybe he's just sleepy. Either way, he's quiet. Jochebed lifts the basket. It's heavier than she expected. Or maybe it just feels heavier because of what it contains. She walks to the Nile. Miriam follows a few steps behind. They don't talk. What is there to say? The riverbank is quiet this early. The sun is just starting to rise. The water is calm. It reflects the sky like a mirror. It looks peaceful, beautiful even. It's hard to reconcile this beauty with the fact that this river has swallowed so many babies already. Jochebed wades into the shallow water. The reeds grow thick here, tall. They'll hide the basket, provide some cover. She places the basket gently among the reeds. The current tugs at it slightly, but the reeds hold it in place. The basket rocks, gentle, like a cradle. The baby is still quiet. His eyes are closed. He looks peaceful. Jochebed stands there for a moment, just watching. Her hands are empty now. It's the worst feeling in the world. Then she turns and walks away, because if she stays, she'll change her mind. She'll scoop him up and take him home and hold him until the soldiers come. Miriam doesn't walk away. Jochebed told her to stay, to watch, to see what happens. It's a mother's desperate hope dressed up as a plan. Maybe someone will find him. Maybe someone kind. Maybe someone who can save him. Miriam hides among the reeds, far enough away that she won't be seen, close enough that she can see the basket, and she waits. The sun rises higher. The riverbank starts to wake up. Women come down to wash clothes, to fetch water. They don't notice the basket. Or maybe they do, and they're pretending they don't. Plausible deniability. It's safer not to know. Then, mid-morning, a group of women arrives. But these aren't Israelite women. These are Egyptian women. Wealthy Egyptian women, based on their clothes, their jewelry, the way they carry themselves. And at the center of the group is Pharaoh's daughter. Now we don't know her name. The Bible doesn't tell us. Later, Jewish tradition calls her Bithiah, but that might be apocryphal. For our purposes, let's just call her what she is, a princess. She's come down to the river to bathe. This is normal. The wealthy do this. The Nile is sacred. Bathing in it is both practical and spiritual, a way to connect with the gods. with the rhythm of Egypt. She wades into the water. Her attendants stay on the bank. And that's when she sees it, the basket, tucked among the reeds, bobbing gently in the current. She's curious. Of course she is. Who wouldn't be? She calls to one of her attendants to go get it. The attendant retrieves the basket, brings it to the princess, and when the princess opens it, she finds a baby, a very Hebrew-looking baby based on the blanket he's wrapped in, the style, the weave, and the baby, who has been remarkably quiet this entire time, chooses this exact moment to start crying. The princess looks down at this tiny, screaming thing, and here's where the story pivots on a single decision, because she knows, she has to know. This is one of the Hebrew babies, one of the ones her father ordered killed, one of the ones that's supposed to be dead. But she doesn't throw him back in the river. She doesn't hand him over to the soldiers. She picks him up. The baby stops crying. Maybe it's the movement. Maybe it's the warmth of being held. Maybe it's divine intervention. Who knows? The princess looks at him, really looks at him, and she makes a choice. This is where Miriam makes her move. She steps out from her hiding place, bold, brave. She approaches the princess, excuses herself, and you have to admire the audacity, a slave child, speaking to royalty, uninvited. She asks if the princess would like her to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby. It's brilliant, it's risky, but it's brilliant. The princess considers this. She's just committed to saving this baby, but she can't nurse him herself. She needs help, and this girl is offering a solution. The princess agrees, tells the girl to go. Miriam runs. She runs faster than she's ever run in her life. She bursts into the house, breathless, and tells her mother the impossible news. The princess took him. She's keeping him, and she needs a nurse. Jochebed's heart is doing complicated things in her chest. Relief, terror, hope, confusion, all at once. She follows Miriam back to the river, and when she arrives, the princess is still holding the baby, her baby. The princess asks if she can nurse this child for her, and Jochebed, keeping her face carefully neutral, says yes. The princess hands the baby back to his own mother, tells her to take him, nurse him, says she'll pay her. So Jochebed walks home with her son and a salary. It's the most absurd twist of fate imaginable. She gets to keep him, for now, for a few years at least, until he's weaned, until he's old enough to leave her. And when that day comes, when the baby is no longer a baby but a toddler, Jochebed brings him back to the palace, to the princess, to the life that will define him. The princess names him Moses. She explains that it's because she drew him out of the water. It's a Hebrew pun wrapped in Egyptian royalty. The name sounds Egyptian, but the meaning is Hebrew. He's both, and neither. A child of two worlds. Moses grows up in Pharaoh's palace. He's educated, fed, clothed in fine linen. He learns to read hieroglyphics, studies mathematics, history, probably learns to fight, the way princes do. But he knows where he came from. Jochebed made sure of that. During those early years, when she nursed him, when she held him, she whispered stories, told him who he was, whose he was. So Moses grows up with this strange double consciousness. He's Egyptian on the outside, Hebrew on the inside. He belongs everywhere and nowhere. It's deeply uncomfortable, psychologically complicated, the kind of thing that makes a person question everything. And it's exactly this tension, this sense of being caught between two identities, that will eventually drive him to do something drastic. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, Moses is safe, alive, growing up in the shadow of the man who wanted him dead. The irony is almost unbearable. And somewhere in Goshen, Jochebed is making bricks again. Her arms ache, her back hurts. But when she closes her eyes at night, she thinks about her son, alive, safe. It's not the ending she wanted, but it's better than the alternative. For now, it's enough. Moses is 40 years old. We know this because the Bible tells us so. Acts 7:23, if you're keeping track. 40 years in Pharaoh's palace, 40 years of being Egyptian, or pretending to be. He's educated, cultured, probably speaks multiple languages. Egyptian, obviously. Hebrew, thanks to his mother. Maybe some Akkadian or Hittite, the languages of diplomacy and trade. He knows how to read hieroglyphics. He's studied the classics. He can probably hold his own in a debate about theology or philosophy, or the best way to administer a province. In other words, he's exactly the kind of person you'd want running an empire. Except he's not running anything. Because despite his education, despite his upbringing, despite the fact that Pharaoh's daughter raised him as her own, Moses is still Hebrew. And everyone knows it. It's in his face, his name, the way people look at him when they think he's not paying attention. He's a curiosity, a novelty, the princess's pet project, but he's not really Egyptian, not in the ways that matter. And Moses knows this. He's always known this. It's the background noise of his entire life. The thing he can't quite escape no matter how well he speaks Egyptian or how fine his clothes are. So when he goes out one day to see his people, and yes, the Bible uses that phrase, which tells you everything about where his loyalties lie. It's not a casual stroll. It's intentional. He's looking for something. Connection maybe, or confirmation. Proof that he belongs somewhere, even if it's not the palace. What he finds is a taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave. Now, this is not unusual. This happens all the time. We established this in chapter 1. The taskmasters carry sticks. They use them. Violence is the lubricant that keeps the empire running smoothly. But something about this particular moment breaks something in Moses. Maybe it's the sound, the thwack of wood against flesh, the grunt of pain, the taskmaster's casual cruelty like he's swatting a fly. Maybe it's the fact that Moses sees himself in the slave, there but for the grace of a basket and a princess go I. Maybe it's just that 40 years of living between two worlds finally catches up with him, and he snaps. Whatever the reason, Moses looks around, left, right, making sure no one's watching. No one is. So he steps forward, grabs the taskmaster, and kills him. The Bible is frustratingly vague on the details here. It just says Moses struck down the Egyptian. Doesn't tell us how. A rock, his bare hands, a weapon. Let's be honest, it probably wasn't clean. Murder rarely is, especially murder committed in a moment of rage by someone who's never killed before. Maybe Moses hits him too hard. Maybe the taskmaster falls and cracks his head on a stone. Maybe he bleeds out in the sand while Moses stands there, breathing hard, realizing what he's just done. The slave is gone. Ran away the second Moses intervened. Smart. You don't stick around when violence escalates. So it's just Moses and the body. And Moses, Prince of Egypt, educated man of the palace, does what any panicked murderer would do. He hides the evidence. He digs a hole in the sand. It's not hard. The desert sand is loose, soft. It swallows things easily. He scoops with his hands, buries the taskmaster, smooths the sand over the top. Then he walks away, quickly, trying to look casual, trying not to think about what he's just done. He goes home, to the palace. He washes his hands, changes his clothes, acts normal, but he can't sleep that night. His mind won't stop replaying the moment, the sound, the way the taskmaster's body went limp, the sand under his fingernails. He's crossed a line, and there's no going back. The next day, Moses goes out again. Maybe he's hoping yesterday was an aberration, a one-time thing. Maybe he's hoping to feel better, to see that his people are okay, that he made a difference. What he sees instead is two Hebrew men fighting, arguing, about to come to blows, and Moses, still riding the high of his righteous intervention from yesterday, steps in. He asks the aggressor why he's hitting his fellow Hebrew. The man turns, looks at Moses, and says something that will haunt Moses for the rest of his life. He asks Moses who made him a ruler and judge, and then he asks the question that changes everything. Is Moses going to kill him the way he killed the Egyptian? Moses freezes. They know. Somehow, word got out. Maybe the slave saw more than Moses thought. Maybe someone else was watching. Maybe the desert isn't as empty as it looks. But people know. And if people know, Pharaoh will know. Soon. Moses doesn't wait around to see what happens next. He runs. The flight from Egypt to Midian is not a short trip. It's not a leisurely journey. It's a desperate scramble across some of the most inhospitable terrain on earth. Moses leaves with nothing. No supplies, no plan, no map. Just the knowledge that if he stays in Egypt, he's dead. He heads east, toward the Sinai Peninsula, toward the wilderness, away from the Nile, away from the cities, away from Pharaoh's reach. The Sinai is not kind to travelers. It's a landscape designed to kill you if you're not careful. During the day, the sun is relentless. The heat radiates off the rocks, the sand. There's no shade, nowhere to hide. Moses walks. He's not used to this. He spent 40 years in the palace. He's soft, privileged. His feet aren't calloused like a laborer's. His skin isn't weathered like a nomad's. By the end of the first day, his feet are blistered. His lips are cracked. He's thirsty. So thirsty. He finds water where he can. Small springs, oases, places where the rock holds moisture. He drinks, rests, moves on. At night, the desert is freezing. The temperature drops. Moses has no blanket, no fire. He curls up behind a rock and shivers until dawn. He's hungry. There's no food out here. Nothing grows. Nothing lives. Just sand and rock and the occasional scorpion. He starts to lose track of time. Days blend together. Walk, rest, survive. His hands are cut from scrambling over rocks. His skin is burned, peeling. He probably looks like a madman, wild-eyed, sunburned, half dead. But he keeps moving, because stopping means dying, and Moses is not ready to die. Eventually, days later, maybe weeks, it's hard to say, he reaches Midian. Midian is a region, not a city. It's a loosely defined area east of the Gulf of Aqaba, populated by semi-nomadic tribes. The Midianites are shepherds, traders. They move with the seasons, following water and pasture. Moses stumbles into their territory more by accident than design. He's just walking, following the land, hoping to find water, food, people who won't kill him on sight. He finds a well. Wells in the ancient Near East are community hubs. They're where you go to water your flocks, to meet other travelers, to trade news and gossip. They're the Bronze Age equivalent of a town square. Moses collapses by the well. He's exhausted, dehydrated. He probably drinks too much water too fast and makes himself sick. While he's sitting there, trying to recover, a group of young women arrives. 7 of them. Sisters, it turns out. They're shepherdesses. They've brought their father's flocks to drink, but there's a problem. A group of shepherds, men, local bullies, are blocking the well, harassing the women, refusing to let them water their flocks. This is not uncommon. Shepherding is competitive. Water is scarce. People are territorial. And women, unfortunately, are easy targets. Moses watches this unfold, and something in him, the same thing that made him kill the taskmaster, stirs again. He stands up, walks over, and drives the shepherds away. We don't know how. Maybe he fights them. Maybe he just yells. Maybe his sheer presence, sunburned, half dead, clearly unhinged, is enough to scare them off. Either way, the shepherds leave. And Moses helps the women water their flocks. The women are grateful, shocked even. They run home and tell their father about the Egyptian who helped them at the well, because that's what Moses looks like to them. Egyptian. His clothes, his accent, whatever's left of his palace bearing. Their father is a man named Reuel, or Jethro. The Bible uses both names. He's a priest, a leader in the community, and he's appalled that his daughters left this stranger at the well. He tells them to go get him, to invite him to eat. So they do. They bring Moses home, feed him, give him a place to sleep. And Moses, who has lost everything, his identity, his home, his future, stays. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months. Moses becomes part of the household. He helps with the flocks. He makes himself useful. Eventually, Jethro offers him a job and a wife, one of his daughters, Zipporah. The offer is practical. Moses needs a home. Zipporah needs a husband. It's a transaction wrapped in hospitality. Moses accepts. What else is he going to do? Go back to Egypt? Face Pharaoh's wrath? No. He's done with Egypt, done with palaces and taskmasters, and the weight of being caught between two worlds. He's going to be a shepherd now, in Midian, in the wilderness, far from the Nile, far from everything he's ever known. It's a radical downgrade, from prince to shepherd, from palace to desert, from silk to wool. But it's also, in a strange way, a relief. There's no pretending anymore, no dual identity. No one here cares that he's Hebrew or Egyptian or anything else. He's just Moses, the guy who waters the sheep. For the first time in his life, he doesn't have to be anything other than what he is. It's not the life he expected, but it's the life he has now, and he's going to live it for the next 40 years. 40 years in the palace, 40 years in the wilderness. The math is almost too perfect to be a coincidence. Moses the prince is dead. Moses the shepherd is born, and in the silence of the desert, far from the noise of empire, something else is about to begin. But we'll get to that. First, let's talk about what it actually means to be a shepherd, because you can't understand the burning bush without understanding the bush. And you can't understand Moses' calling without understanding the life he's about to live for 4 decades. So let's slow down. Let's sit with the sheep. Let's talk about staffs and slings and loneliness and stars. Let's talk about what the wilderness does to a man. Let's talk about sheep, because Moses is going to spend the next 40 years with them. Not occasionally, not as a hobby, every single day, from sunrise to sunset, in the wilderness, with nothing but wool and bleating and his own thoughts. If you want to understand what happens at the burning bush, you need to understand what happens before the burning bush. You need to understand the life that shapes a man, the routine, the silence, the way the desert strips you down to your essential self. So let's slow down. Let's sit with the flock. Let's talk about what it actually means to be a shepherd in the ancient Near East. Spoiler alert, it's not a pastoral painting. It's not a guy in a flowing robe playing a lyre while lambs frolic in a meadow. It's work. Hard, dangerous, lonely work. Moses wakes up before dawn, every day. This is not optional. Sheep don't care about your sleep schedule. They need to graze in the early morning, before the sun gets too hot, before the day becomes unbearable. He sleeps outside, most nights. Sometimes there's a shelter, a small stone structure built by previous shepherds. But usually, it's just Moses and the sky. He wraps himself in his cloak, uses a rock as a pillow, tries to ignore the cold, because the desert at night is freezing. People forget this. They think desert equals hot. But when the sun goes down, the temperature drops. Fast. There's no moisture in the air to hold the heat. No trees, no vegetation. Just rocks and sand that radiate cold. Moses wakes up stiff, sore. His back hurts from sleeping on the ground. His joints ache. He's not 20 anymore. He's in his 40s now, then his 50s, then his 60s. The years pile up. The body doesn't bounce back the way it used to. He stands, stretches, looks around. The sheep are still sleeping, huddled together in a mass of wool and warmth. Sheep are social animals. They don't like being alone. They cluster, press against each other. It's both practical and instinctive. Moses does a head count. This is crucial. He needs to know if any sheep wandered off during the night, if any were taken by predators, if any died. Sheep are remarkably good at dying. They get sick. They fall off cliffs. They eat the wrong plant. They get stuck in thorn bushes. They're not the brightest animals. Survival is not their strong suit. So Moses counts. 1, 2, 3, all the way to however many sheep Jethro owns. Let's say 100, maybe more. The Bible doesn't give us an exact number, but Jethro seems reasonably prosperous, so we're talking about a decent-sized flock. Once he's sure all the sheep are accounted for, Moses starts moving them. He doesn't drive them, not the way you drive cattle. Sheep don't respond well to being pushed. They panic, scatter, cause chaos. Instead, Moses leads them. He walks ahead, calls to them. The sheep know his voice. They follow, slowly, stupidly, but they follow. He's looking for pasture, green grass, fresh vegetation. This is harder than it sounds. The Sinai wilderness is not lush, it's not fertile. Most of it is rock and dust. But there are places where water collects, small springs, seasonal streams, and wherever there's water, there's grass. Not much, just enough. Moses has memorized the landscape. He knows where the water is, where the grass grows, which paths are safe, which ravines flood during the rare rains. He's walked these routes for years, decades. His feet know the ground. His eyes know the horizon. This is his office now, the wilderness. No walls, no roof, just sky and rock and distance. Let's talk about the tools of the trade, because shepherding is not a hands-off job. You need equipment. And in the Bronze Age, equipment is minimal but essential. First, the staff. Moses carries a wooden staff, about as tall as he is, maybe a little taller. It's made from a sturdy branch. Olive wood, probably, or acacia. Something hard, something that won't snap under pressure. The staff has multiple uses. It's a walking stick, helps with balance on uneven terrain, helps him climb. It's also a weapon. If a predator comes, and we'll get to predators in a moment, the staff is his first line of defense. The top of the staff is often curved, like a shepherd's crook. This is not decorative, it's functional. Moses can use the curve to hook a sheep by the leg or neck, pull it back if it's wandering toward danger, rescue it if it falls into a crevice. He also carries a sling, not the kind of sling you might be thinking of. Not a baby carrier, a weapon, a leather strap with a small pouch in the middle. You put a stone in the pouch, swing it around your head, release, the stone flies. In the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, a sling is deadly accurate. You can hit a target from 100 feet away. Moses practices a lot, because out here, accuracy is survival. He uses the sling to scare off predators, to knock down birds for food, to keep the sheep in line if one of them decides to bolt in the wrong direction. Then there's the cloak. Wool, thick, heavy. It's Moses' blanket, his tent, his shield against the sun and wind. During the day, he drapes it over his shoulders. At night, he wraps himself in it. If it rains, and it almost never rains, but when it does, the cloak keeps him somewhat dry. Somewhat. These are his tools: staff, sling, cloak. That's it. No GPS, no first aid kit, no backup. Just him and the sheep and the wilderness. Now let's talk about the dangers. Because the wilderness is not a peaceful place. It's actively trying to kill you. And your sheep. First, predators. Lions. Yes, lions. There were lions in this region during the Bronze Age. Syrian lions. Smaller than African lions, but still very much capable of killing a sheep or a human. Moses has probably encountered lions, maybe not often. Lions are smart enough to avoid confrontation when possible, but when they're hungry, when prey is scarce, they'll take their chances. A lion stalking a flock is terrifying. You see it in the distance, low to the ground, moving slowly, calculating. Moses has to make a decision. Does he fight? Does he try to scare it off? Does he let it take one sheep and hope it leaves the rest alone? He fights, usually, because if he doesn't, the lion will come back, and the next time, it will be bolder. So Moses grabs his staff, his sling. He shouts, throws stones, makes himself as big and loud as possible. Sometimes it works. The lion decides it's not worth the trouble. It slinks away. Moses' heart is pounding. His hands are shaking, but the sheep are safe. Sometimes it doesn't work. The lion attacks. Moses has to defend himself. And the sheep, he swings his staff, aims for the head, the ribs, anywhere vulnerable. It's brutal, violent, the kind of fight you don't walk away from without scars. There are also bears, leopards, hyenas, jackals, all of them opportunistic, all of them hungry. And then there are human threats, thieves, raiders, rival shepherds who want to steal your flock. Moses is always on alert, always scanning the horizon, always listening for sounds that don't belong. But predators aren't the only danger. The landscape itself is hostile. Cliffs. The terrain around Midian is rocky, mountainous. There are ravines, steep drop-offs. A sheep can wander too close to the edge, lose its footing, fall. Moses has probably lost sheep this way. He climbs down, tries to retrieve the body. Sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. Sometimes the fall is too steep, the body too broken. He feels responsible, even though it's not really his fault. Even though sheep are idiots who walk off cliffs. He still feels it. Weather is another threat. The sun, obviously, is relentless. Moses' skin is dark now, leathery, burned over and over until it's adapted. But there's also the wind, sandstorms. When the wind picks up, it carries sand and dust. It gets in your eyes, your mouth, your lungs. You can't see, you can't breathe. You crouch down, cover your face with your cloak, wait for it to pass. And then there's the rare rain. When it rains in the desert, it doesn't drizzle, it pours. Flash floods are common. Dry riverbeds fill in minutes, become raging torrents. If you're caught in the wrong place, you drown. Moses knows this. He's learned to read the sky, to recognize the signs, to move the flock to higher ground when the clouds gather. Survival out here is a skill, and Moses has become very, very good at it. But let's talk about the hardest part of shepherding. It's not the predators, it's not the weather, it's the loneliness. Moses spends most of his time alone, just him and the sheep, and sheep are not great conversationalists. He goes days without seeing another human. Maybe he crosses paths with another shepherd occasionally, They exchange a few words, share news, move on. But mostly, it's silence. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own thoughts. At first, the silence is unbearable. Moses' mind races, replays the past, the murder, the flight, the life he left behind. He's angry, ashamed, confused. But over time, the silence becomes something else. Not comfortable, exactly, but familiar, almost meditative. Moses starts to notice things, the way light changes on the rocks, the patterns in the sand, the movement of clouds, the sound of wind through dry grass. He watches the stars. Every night, there's nothing else to do. No distractions, no artificial light. Just the sky, endless and overwhelming. He learns the constellations, tracks the moon's phases, watches planets drift across the heavens. The stars make him feel small, insignificant, a tiny, temporary creature in a vast, indifferent universe. But they also make him feel connected to something bigger, something beyond the mud and blood of Egypt, beyond empires and quotas and violence. Moses starts to pray, not formal prayers, not liturgies, just thoughts directed outward, questions whispered into the dark. Who am I? What am I doing here? Is this all there is? He doesn't get answers. Not yet. The silence doesn't respond, but the questions remain, and they shape him. 40 years. That's how long Moses shepherds in Midian. 40 years of walking, watching, waiting. 40 years of silence and stars and survival. It's easy to see this as wasted time. Moses is in his prime. He's educated, capable. He could be doing something important, leading, building, making a difference. Instead, he's babysitting sheep. But here's the thing. The wilderness is not wasted time. It's preparation. Because you can't lead a nation through a desert if you don't know how to survive in a desert. You can't guide people through 40 years of wandering if you haven't wandered yourself. Moses learns patience, the kind of patience you need when sheep are slow, when progress is measured in feet, not miles, when every day is the same, and the same, and the same. He learns endurance, the kind of endurance you need when your body hurts, and the sun is merciless, and there's no finish line in sight. He learns humility, the kind of humility you learn when you're completely dependent on things outside your control. Water, weather, the whims of livestock. He learns to listen to the land, to the silence, to the voice he doesn't quite hear yet, but is starting to sense. Shepherding is not glamorous, but it's foundational. It's the education Moses didn't know he needed. And when the time comes, when the bush burns and the voice speaks and Moses is called to do something impossible, he'll be ready. Not because he's a prince, not because he's educated, not because he's special, but because he spent 40 years in the wilderness, learning, waiting, becoming someone different than who he was. The Moses who killed the taskmaster was impulsive, violent, unsure of himself. The Moses who will meet God at the burning bush is calm, patient, grounded. The wilderness did that, the sheep did that, the silence did that. 40 years is a long time, but it's exactly the right amount of time. And now, finally, Moses is ready, even if he doesn't know it yet. The bush is waiting, the call is coming. The second half of Moses' life is about to begin. But first, one more morning, one more dawn, one more day of leading sheep through the wilderness. Moses stands, stretches, counts the flock, starts walking. Just another day, until it isn't. Moses is 80 years old. 80. The Bible is very specific about this. Acts 7:30, if you're keeping track. Half his life in Egypt, half his life in Midian. The math is almost too perfect. He's leading Jethro's flock through the wilderness. Same route he's walked 1,000 times, past the same rocks, the same dry riverbeds, the same thorny shrubs that somehow survive in this landscape. The sheep are doing their sheep thing, walking slowly, stopping to nibble at whatever passes for vegetation out here, making their little bleating sounds. Moses is not thinking about anything in particular. His mind is on autopilot. This is what 40 years of routine does to you. You don't need to think anymore. Your body just knows where to go. He's heading toward Mount Horeb, also called Sinai. The mountain has different names depending on who you ask, but it's the same place. A massive pile of rock rising out of the desert floor. It's a good spot for grazing. There are small springs near the base of the mountain. A bit of green, enough to keep the sheep occupied for a few hours. Moses has been here before, many times. It's familiar territory, except today something is different. He sees it from a distance, a bush, on fire. Now, bushes catch fire in the desert. It happens. The sun is intense. The vegetation is dry. A bit of reflected light, a spark from a rock, whatever. Things burn. But this bush is strange, because it's burning, and not burning up. The flames are there. Moses can see them, flickering, orange and yellow. But the branches aren't turning black. The leaves aren't curling. The bush isn't being consumed. It's just burning, indefinitely, like someone hit pause on the laws of physics. Moses stops walking, stares at the bush. His brain is trying to make sense of what he's seeing, trying to fit it into the category of normal things that happen in the wilderness. It doesn't fit. He's curious. Of course he is. 40 years of routine have not killed his sense of wonder. If anything, the silence and solitude have made him more attuned to anomalies, to things that don't belong. So he decides to investigate. He tells himself he's just going to take a closer look, figure out what's going on, then get back to the sheep. He walks toward the bush, slowly, carefully, the way you approach something that might be dangerous. The closer he gets, the stranger it becomes. The flames are real. He can feel the heat. But the bush is untouched. It's green, alive, burning without being destroyed. Moses is maybe 10 feet away now, close enough to see the details, the way the fire moves, the way it seems to dance without consuming. And then a voice speaks, not from the bush, from everywhere, from the air itself, from the ground, from inside Moses' own head. The voice calls his name, Moses, Moses, and Moses responds. He says he's here, he's listening. The voice tells him to stop, to take off his sandals, because the ground he's standing on is holy. Moses doesn't argue. He doesn't ask questions. He just obeys. He reaches down, unties his sandals, pulls them off, stands barefoot on the hot sand, and then the voice identifies itself. It tells Moses who it is, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Moses covers his face. He's terrified, because this is not a philosophical conversation. This is not a theological debate. This is the God who created the universe speaking directly to him. A man who has spent the last 40 years talking to sheep. The contrast is almost comical, except it's not funny. It's overwhelming. The voice continues. It tells Moses that it has seen the suffering of the Israelites in Egypt. It has heard their cries. It knows their pain. And it's going to do something about it. It's going to rescue them, bring them out of Egypt, lead them to a new land, a good land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Moses is still covering his face, still processing. This is a lot of information, and it's about to get worse, because the voice tells Moses that he is the one who's going to make this happen. Moses is going to go back to Egypt. He's going to confront Pharaoh. He's going to demand the release of the Israelites. And Moses, understandably, panics. He asks who he is to do this. He's nobody. He's a shepherd, an old man, an exile, a murderer technically. What gives him the authority to walk into Pharaoh's palace and demand anything? The voice responds with a promise. It tells Moses that it will be with him, that this whole encounter, this burning bush, this conversation, is proof, a sign. Moses is not convinced. He raises another objection. If he goes to the Israelites and tells them that the God of their ancestors sent him, they're going to ask for specifics. They're going to want a name. What is Moses supposed to tell them? The voice gives him a name. It tells Moses to say that I Am has sent him. The God who is, the God who exists, the eternal, self-sufficient, unchanging one. It's a profound theological statement wrapped in two simple words. I am. Moses is still not convinced. He raises another objection. What if they don't believe him? What if they think he's making this up? What if they laugh at him? The voice asks Moses what he's holding in his hand. Moses says it's a staff, his shepherd's staff, the one he's carried for 40 years. The voice tells him to throw it on the ground. Moses does, and the staff turns into a snake. Moses jumps back. He's not expecting that. The snake is moving, slithering, very much alive. The voice tells Moses to pick it up by the tail. This is a terrible idea. You don't pick up snakes by the tail. That's how you get bitten. But Moses reaches down, grabs it, and the snake turns back into a staff. The voice gives him more signs, more miracles, things he can do to prove that he's telling the truth, that he's not crazy, that God really did send him. But Moses is still resisting. He raises one more objection, the biggest one, the one that's probably been bothering him this entire time. He tells the voice that he's not eloquent, he's not a good speaker, he's slow of speech and tongue. Maybe he stutters. Maybe he has a speech impediment. Maybe he's just not naturally charismatic. Whatever it is, Moses is convinced he's the wrong person for this job. Someone else would be better. Someone who can actually talk. The voice is getting impatient now. It asks Moses who made his mouth, who makes people mute or deaf or seeing or blind. Isn't it God? And won't God help Moses speak? The voice tells Moses to go. It will teach him what to say. Moses makes one last desperate attempt. He begs the voice to send someone else. Anyone else. Please. And the voice gets angry. You can feel it in the text. The patience has run out. But the voice makes a concession. It tells Moses that his brother Aaron can speak for him. Aaron will be his spokesman. Moses can tell Aaron what to say, and Aaron will say it. It's not the out Moses was hoping for. He's still going. He's still responsible. He just has help now. The voice gives Moses his assignment. Go back to Egypt. Gather the elders. Tell them what God said. Go to Pharaoh. Demand the release of the people. And then the voice tells Moses something ominous. Pharaoh will not listen. Not at first, not willingly. God is going to have to force the issue. With wonders, with plagues, with displays of power so overwhelming that Pharaoh will have no choice but to let the people go. This is not going to be easy. This is not going to be quick. This is going to be a battle. Moses is standing barefoot in the sand. The bush is still burning, still not consumed. The sheep are somewhere behind him, completely oblivious to the fact that their shepherd's life just changed forever. Moses picks up his sandals, puts them back on. He looks at the staff in his hand, just a piece of wood, except it's not anymore. He turns, walks back to the flock. His mind is racing, his heart is pounding. He has no idea how he's going to do this, how he's going to go back to Egypt, how he's going to face Pharaoh. But he's going to do it, because apparently He doesn't have a choice. The burning bush stops burning, or maybe it keeps burning. The text doesn't say, but Moses isn't looking at it anymore. He's looking toward Egypt, toward the past he thought he'd escaped. 40 years ago, he ran away from Egypt in shame. A murderer, a failure, a man caught between two worlds. Now he's going back, not as a prince, not as a criminal, as something else entirely, a messenger, a liberator, an instrument of divine intervention. Moses doesn't feel ready. He doesn't feel qualified. He doesn't feel like the right person for the job. But that's never been the point. The point is that God is ready. God is qualified. And God is going to use Moses whether Moses likes it or not. The sheep start moving. Moses follows. His staff feels different in his hand now, heavier, more significant. Everything has changed, and nothing will ever be the same. Egypt is waiting. Pharaoh is waiting. 400 years of slavery are about to end. And it all starts with an old man, a burning bush, and a conversation that should not have been possible. The confrontation is coming, and it's going to be brutal. Moses goes back to Egypt. This is not a triumphant return. This is not a hero's homecoming. This is an 80-year-old man with a staff and his brother walking back into the country that tried to kill him. He finds Aaron first. They meet in the wilderness. Aaron has been told to go find Moses. So they meet halfway. Two old men, brothers who barely know each other, about to attempt something impossible. They go to the Israelite elders. They tell them what God said. They perform the signs, the staff to snake trick, the leprous hand, the water to blood demonstration. The elders believe them, or at least they want to believe them. After 400 years of slavery, you'll believe anything that sounds like hope. Then Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh. This is the part where everything should work, where Moses delivers God's message, and Pharaoh, recognizing the authority of the divine, immediately agrees to free the slaves. Except that's not what happens. Moses tells Pharaoh that the God of Israel demands the release of his people. Pharaoh laughs, not literally maybe, but spiritually. The idea is absurd to him. He asks who this God is. Why should he listen? Egypt has gods, lots of them. Ra, Osiris, Horus, powerful gods, gods with temples and priests and centuries of tradition. This Hebrew God? Never heard of him. Pharaoh refuses. Not only refuses, but punishes the Israelites for even asking. He takes away their straw supply. Now they have to gather their own straw and still meet the same brick quota. It's cruel, calculated, a power move designed to crush hope before it can take root. The Israelites blame Moses. This is understandable. Things were bad before. Now they're worse. Thanks for nothing. Moses is discouraged. This is not how he thought this would go. He complains to God. He asks why he was sent if nothing is going to change. God tells him to wait, to watch, because Pharaoh is about to learn something about power and about who actually controls the Nile. The plagues begin. Let's go through them, slowly, one at a time, because this is not a quick process. This is a campaign, a systematic dismantling of Egypt's sense of security. It takes months, maybe close to a year. Each plague is its own event, its own disaster, its own moment of Pharaoh almost breaking, almost giving in, but not quite. So let's catalogue them. Every disgusting, overwhelming, impossible detail. The first plague is water into blood. Moses and Aaron meet Pharaoh at the Nile in the morning. Pharaoh comes to the river every day. It's part of his routine, a ritual. The Nile is sacred, divine. Aaron raises his staff, strikes the water, and the entire river turns to blood. Not metaphorical blood, not red algae, Not some natural phenomenon that looks like blood. Blood, thick, dark, the kind that coagulates, the kind that smells metallic and wrong. Every water source in Egypt is affected. The Nile, the canals, the ponds, the reservoirs, even the water stored in wooden buckets and stone jars. Water that was collected yesterday. Water that was clean an hour ago. All of it. Blood. The fish die immediately. They can't survive in blood. Their bodies float to the surface, thousands of them, tens of thousands. Bass and catfish and perch, their silver scales glinting in the sun, their mouths open, gasping at nothing. Within hours, the riverbanks are lined with dead fish. The smell starts almost immediately. Fish rot fast in the Egyptian heat. The sun beats down, the blood thickens, the flesh decays, the smell is unbearable. Dead fish, blood, heat. It's the kind of smell that gets into your clothes, your hair, your lungs. You can't escape it. Even inside your house with the doors closed, you can smell it. Sweet and rotten and metallic all at once. It makes people gag, retch, children cry, old people cough. Everyone's eyes water. Egyptians are desperate for water. You can't drink blood, obviously, but you also can't wash in it, can't cook with it, can't water your gardens. They dig wells, frantically, trying to find water that hasn't been contaminated. They dig in places they've never dug before, in their courtyards, near their homes, anywhere. They do find some, groundwater, deep underground water that hasn't touched the Nile. But it's not enough, not for everyone. And it takes time to dig. And people are thirsty now. The wealthy can pay for water, the poor suffer. This is always how disasters work. The vulnerable suffer most. This goes on for 7 days, a week of blood, a week of thirst, a week of stench, a week of dead fish piling up, a week of watching the sacred Nile, the God River, the source of all life in Egypt, turn into something horrifying. Pharaoh's magicians replicate the trick. They turn water into blood too. This is somehow supposed to prove that Moses' God isn't special, that Egyptian magic is just as powerful. It doesn't help. Everyone is still thirsty. Everyone is still surrounded by blood. The magicians just made things worse. Pharaoh refuses to let the people go. The second plague is frogs. Aaron stretches out his hand over the water, and frogs come. Not a few frogs, not a concerning number of frogs. All the frogs. They come out of the Nile, out of the canals. They cover the land. They're everywhere. In the streets, in the houses, in the beds, in the ovens, in the kneading troughs, in storage jars, in cupboards, under furniture. You can't walk without stepping on frogs. You can't sit without sitting on frogs. You open a jar of grain and there are frogs inside. You reach for bread and your hand touches frog skin. Cold, wet, slimy. They jump on you, land on your shoulders, your head. They get tangled in your hair. Children scream, adults curse. Everyone is constantly swatting at frogs. You try to sleep, but frogs are in your bed. You feel them moving under the blanket, against your legs. You kick them out, but more keep coming. The sound is maddening. Thousands of frogs croaking, ribbiting, all at once, all the time, day and night. It's a wall of noise, a constant, overwhelming chorus. You can't think, you can't sleep, you can't have a conversation without shouting over the frogs. And then they die, all of them, at the same time, because Moses prays and God stops the plague. But the frogs don't disappear, they don't vanish, they just die, where they are, in the streets, in the houses, in the beds, in the ovens where people need to bake bread. The Egyptians have to gather them, pile them up, in heaps, massive, rotting heaps of dead frogs. The heaps are waist high, shoulder high in some places. The smell is worse than the blood, worse than the fish. Decomposing frogs in the Egyptian heat. It's a physical assault. You gag when you breathe, you vomit. Everyone is walking around with cloth pressed to their faces, trying to filter the air. The heaps attract flies, millions of flies. They buzz around the dead frogs, lay eggs. The maggots come, writhing white masses in the rotting flesh. This is what Egypt smells like now. Death, decay, the sweet, sick stench of rot. It takes days to clear the frogs, weeks really. And even after they're gone, the smell lingers, in the walls, in the fabric, in your memory. Pharaoh's magicians replicate this plague too. They make more frogs appear. Because apparently, what Egypt needs right now is more frogs. Pharaoh almost gives in. He calls Moses and Aaron, tells them to pray to their God to take away the frogs. He promises to let the people go. Moses prays, the frogs die. Pharaoh changes his mind, the people don't go. The third plague is gnats, or lice. The Hebrew word is unclear, probably some kind of tiny biting insect. Aaron strikes the dust of the ground with his staff, and the dust becomes insects, clouds of them, on people, on animals, in the air. You breathe them in. They get in your eyes, your ears, your nose. They bite, constantly. Little stinging bites that itch and burn and drive you insane. You can't get away from them. You can swat and scratch and cover yourself, but they're everywhere, on everything. Pharaoh's magicians try to replicate this one. They can't. This is beyond their ability. They tell Pharaoh that this is the finger of God. Pharaoh doesn't care. He refuses to let the people go. The fourth plague is flies, not gnats. Flies, bigger, louder, more aggressive. They swarm. Thick clouds of flies. They cover everything. The ground, the walls, the food. You can't eat without flies landing on your bread. You can't open your mouth without flies trying to get in. The buzz is constant, oppressive. You can't hear yourself think over the sound of millions of flies. But here's where things get interesting. The flies don't go to Goshen, the region where the Israelites live. No flies there, just in the Egyptian areas. It's a clear division, a sign. This is not random. This is targeted. Pharaoh calls Moses, offers a compromise. The Israelites can sacrifice to their God, but they have to do it in Egypt. They can't leave. Moses refuses. That's not the deal. The people have to go 3 days into the wilderness. That's what God said. Pharaoh adjusts his offer. Fine. They can go, but not far. And Moses has to pray for the flies to stop. Moses prays, the flies disappear. Pharaoh changes his mind again. The people stay. The fifth plague is livestock disease. God tells Moses to warn Pharaoh. Tomorrow, all the Egyptian livestock will die. Horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, goats, all of them. The next day, it happens. The animals start collapsing, one by one, then in groups. By evening, every Egyptian animal is dead. But the Israelite animals, fine, healthy, grazing as if nothing happened. Pharaoh sends officials to check. They confirm it. Only Egyptian animals. The division is precise. Impossible to explain naturally. Pharaoh still refuses. The sixth plague is boils. Moses and Aaron take handfuls of soot from a furnace. They throw it into the air in front of Pharaoh. The soot becomes dust. The dust spreads over Egypt, and everyone breaks out in boils. Painful, oozing sores. On people, on animals, on the magicians. The magicians can't even stand before Moses anymore. They're covered in boils, too sick, too miserable. The boils don't go away quickly. They linger, festering, infected. Every movement hurts. Every touch is agony. Pharaoh refuses. The seventh plague is hail. Moses warns Pharaoh. Tomorrow, God is going to send the worst hailstorm Egypt has ever seen. Anyone who stays outside will die. Bring your livestock in. Bring your servants in. Take shelter. Some Egyptians believe Moses. They've seen enough. They know he's telling the truth. They bring their animals inside. They call their field workers home. They take cover. Some don't. They're stubborn or skeptical, or they've hardened their hearts like Pharaoh. They leave their servants and animals in the fields. They think Moses is bluffing. They think this will pass like everything else. They're wrong. The next day, the storm comes. It starts with thunder, deep, rumbling, the kind you feel in your chest, in your bones. It doesn't stop. It rolls continuously, one crack after another, overlapping, building, then lightning, not occasional flashes, constant, striking the ground, striking trees, striking buildings. The sky is white with electricity. The air smells like ozone, like burning. And then the hail, but not normal hail, not pea-sized ice, not even golf ball-sized. These are chunks of ice the size of fists, the size of melons, falling from the sky at terminal velocity, mixed with fire, lightning inside the hailstorm, fire running along the ground. It's supernatural, impossible. The physics don't work. Ice and fire together, falling, striking, destroying. The hail destroys everything. Crops that survived the locusts, trees that have stood for decades, buildings with weak roofs, animals caught outside. When hail that size hits flesh, it kills. Instantly. Servants caught in the fields drop where they stand, skulls crushed, bodies broken. The noise is deafening. The impact of hail hitting the ground. Boom, 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 like drums, like war drums. The crack of lightning, the rumble of thunder, the splinter of wood as trees break, the shatter of pottery as jars explode. It goes on for hours, wave after wave, relentless. People huddle inside their homes, praying, crying, watching through windows as Egypt is pummeled. The fields turn white with ice. The ground is covered. In some places the hail is knee-deep, drifts of ice in the desert. But in Goshen, nothing. Clear skies, warm sun, no hail. The Israelites watch from their homes as the storm rages everywhere else. The border between Egypt and Goshen is a wall. On one side, destruction. On the other, peace. Pharaoh calls Moses. He admits he sinned. He says God is right and he and his people are wrong. He begs Moses to pray, to make it stop. He can't take any more. Moses prays. The thunder stops. The lightning stops. The hail stops. Just like that. Instant silence. It's almost jarring after hours of noise. Pharaoh changes his mind. As soon as the storm ends, his heart hardens again. The people don't go. The 8th plague is locusts. Moses warns Pharaoh. Locusts are coming. They will eat everything the hail didn't destroy. Every plant, every tree, every bit of greenery left. Pharaoh's officials are panicking. They beg Pharaoh to give in. Egypt is ruined, destroyed. There's nothing left. Just let them go. Pharaoh calls Moses, offers another compromise. The men can go, but the women and children stay. Moses refuses. Everyone goes, or no one goes. Pharaoh kicks them out, threatens them, tells them to never come back. The next day, the locusts arrive. An east wind brings them. So many locusts that they block out the sun. The sky turns dark with insects. They land, and they eat. Everything. Grass, crops, leaves, bark, anything green, anything growing. The sound is horrifying. Millions of mandibles chewing, the rustle of wings, the sheer mass of insects moving across the land. Within hours, Egypt is stripped bare, brown, dead, desolate. Pharaoh panics, calls Moses urgently, confesses, begs for forgiveness, pleads for Moses to pray. Moses prays. A west wind comes, blows the locusts into the Red Sea. every single one. Pharaoh changes his mind. The people stay. The 9th plague is darkness. No warning this time. Moses stretches out his hand toward the sky, and darkness falls over Egypt. Not nighttime darkness, not cloud cover, not eclipse darkness, thick darkness, the kind you can feel, the kind that presses against you, against your skin, against your chest. For 3 days, it's completely dark. No sun, no moon, no stars, no light from lamps or fires. The flames still burn, but they don't illuminate anything. The darkness swallows the light. You can't see your hand in front of your face. You hold it up, wave it. Nothing, just black. You can't see the person next to you. You hear them breathing, feel their warmth, but you can't see them. It's like they've disappeared. People don't move. They're afraid to. What if they trip? What if they fall? What if they knock something over? What if they get turned around in their own house and can't find their way back? So they stay where they are, frozen, trapped in blackness. The psychological effect is profound. Humans are not meant to live in complete darkness. We need light. We need to see. We need visual confirmation that the world still exists. Without it, you start to panic. Your breathing gets shallow, fast. Your heart races. You feel like you're suffocating even though there's plenty of air. Children cry. Constantly. They can't understand what's happening. They call for their parents. Their parents call back. But without sight, the voices feel distant. Disconnected. Adults try to stay calm, but the darkness gets to them too. Some people start talking to themselves, just to hear a voice, just to confirm they're still real. Others go silent, retreat inward. The darkness outside becomes darkness inside. Time loses meaning. Is it day, night? How long has it been? An hour, 10 hours? There's no way to tell. People get hungry, thirsty, but they can't find food, can't navigate to the water jars. They fumble in the dark, knock things over, give up. The 3 days feel like weeks, like months, like an eternity spent in sensory deprivation. But in Goshen, light, normal, beautiful, blessed light. The sun shines. The Israelites go about their day, cook, talk, live. They can see the darkness. It has borders, a clear line. On one side, Egypt in total black. On the other side, normal day. The contrast is stark, unbearable. Egypt is plunged into literal darkness while Israel lives in light. It's not subtle. It's not ambiguous. It's a statement. God's people are protected, separated, favored. Pharaoh calls Moses. He can't see Moses, but he knows Moses is there. He can hear him. Another compromise. Everyone can go. Men, women, children. But the livestock stays. Moses refuses. They need the animals. For sacrifices. For food. The animals go too. Pharaoh explodes. He's done. He tells Moses to get out. Never come back. If he sees Moses' face again, Moses will die. Moses agrees. He won't see Pharaoh's face again. Not after this. Because one more plague is coming. The worst one. The final one. But we'll get to that. First, let's just sit with what's already happened. 9 plagues. 9 disasters. 9 times Pharaoh almost gave in. Almost let them go. 9 times he changed his mind. Moses is exhausted. Aaron is exhausted. The Israelites are terrified. They don't know if this is going to work. They don't know if they'll ever be free. Egypt is destroyed. The economy is shattered. The crops are gone. The water is finally drinkable again, but there's no food. The animals are dead. The people are covered in scars from boils. And Pharaoh? Pharaoh is stubborn, hard-hearted, clinging to power even as everything around him collapses. He's not going to give in. Not willingly. Not unless something breaks him completely. And something will. One final plague. One final horror. One final night of death that will finally make Pharaoh let the people go. But that night hasn't come yet. We're still in the middle, still in the cycle of plague and refusal. Plague and refusal. Moses stands before Pharaoh for what he thinks is the last time. He delivers one final warning. One more plague, and then Egypt will beg them to leave. Pharaoh doesn't believe him. Pharaoh never believes him. Not until it's too late. The pattern holds. Warning, refusal, consequence, regret, refusal again. It's maddening, repetitive, exhausting, but it's also methodical, deliberate. Each plague targets something Egypt values, something they trust, something they worship. The Nile, their sacred river, turned to blood, their land, overrun with frogs and insects and locusts, their livestock, dead, their bodies, covered in boils, their sky, dark and hostile. Egypt's gods are being systematically dismantled, shown to be powerless, irrelevant. And Pharaoh is learning, very slowly, that he is not actually in control, that there are forces beyond his power, beyond his comprehension, but he's not ready to admit it yet, not ready to surrender. So the plagues continue, the suffering continues, and Moses keeps showing up, keeps warning, keeps praying. This is what obedience looks like sometimes. Not dramatic, not triumphant, just showing up, over and over, saying the same thing, watching the same stubbornness, until finally something breaks, and it will break, soon. One more plague, one more night, and then everything changes. The 10th plague comes at midnight. Moses has warned Pharaoh, warned Egypt. Every firstborn son will die. From Pharaoh's palace to the poorest slave, from humans to livestock, the firstborn, all of them. The Israelites are told to prepare, to sacrifice a lamb, to spread the blood on their door frames, to stay inside, to eat quickly, to be ready to leave. This is the Passover. The night death passes over the marked houses and strikes the unmarked ones. At midnight, it happens. All at once. Every firstborn in Egypt dies. Pharaoh's son, the son of the prisoner in the dungeon, the firstborn cattle, the firstborn sheep, simultaneous death across an entire nation. The sound that rises from Egypt is unlike anything anyone has heard before. Wailing, screaming, the collective grief of a nation losing its children, its future. Every house is touched, every family. There's no escaping it, no bribing your way out, no political connections that can save you. Pharaoh's son is dead, the heir to the throne, gone. Pharaoh breaks. Finally, completely. He calls for Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night, tells them to go. Take everyone, take everything, the people, the livestock, just go. The Egyptians are begging the Israelites to leave, pushing them out, giving them gold and silver and clothing just to make them go faster. Anything to stop the dying, anything to make this nightmare end. The Israelites leave, 600,000 men, plus women, plus children, plus livestock. A massive migration, happening in hours, in the dark, in chaos. They don't have time to let their bread rise. They pack unleavened dough, grab what they can carry, load up donkeys and carts. Children are crying, confused. Adults are shouting, trying to organize, trying to keep families together. It's not orderly. It's not planned. It's a panicked exodus, a flood of humanity pouring out of Goshen. Heading east, they walk all night, all the next day, driven by fear and hope and adrenaline. Moses is leading them, or trying to. God is guiding them with a pillar of cloud during the day, a pillar of fire at night, visible, unmistakable. Follow that, they walk for days. The column of people stretches for miles. The elderly struggle. The children get tired. The livestock slow everything down, but they keep moving because Egypt is behind them and freedom is ahead, somewhere. Then they reach the Red Sea, or the Sea of Reeds. The Hebrew is ambiguous, but it's a body of water, large, impassable, and they're standing at the edge of it. Moses has been following God's directions. This is where they're supposed to be. But it doesn't make sense. The sea is in front of them, mountains on either side, and behind them, Egypt, because Pharaoh has changed his mind. Again, he's had time to think, to realize what he's done. He's released his entire labor force. His economy is destroyed. His son is dead. And he's just going to let them walk away. No, he gathers his army, 600 chariots, the best troops, the fastest horses, and he pursues. The Israelites see them coming. The dust cloud on the horizon, the glint of armor, the thunder of hooves and wheels. Panic sets in. They're trapped. Water ahead, army behind, mountains on the sides. They turn on Moses. This is predictable. This is what people do when they're terrified. They blame the person in charge. They ask if there weren't enough graves in Egypt. They ask if Moses brought them out here to die. They say slavery was better than this. Moses tells them not to be afraid, to stand firm, to watch what God is going to do. He doesn't sound confident. He sounds like a man repeating instructions he doesn't fully understand. God tells Moses to stretch out his staff over the sea, to divide the water. Moses raises his staff, and God sends a wind, an east wind, all night long, strong, relentless, the kind of wind that makes it hard to stand, hard to breathe. The water starts to move, to shift, to pull back. The wind is driving it, pushing it, creating a path. By morning, there's dry ground, a corridor through the sea. The water is piled up on both sides, walls of water, held in place by wind, by something beyond wind. It's impossible. Physics doesn't work this way. Water doesn't stand up, but it is, right there, defying everything. The Israelites stare. They don't move at first, because walking into that looks like suicide. What if the water collapses? What if the wind stops? But Moses walks, and slowly people follow, because what choice do they have? The Egyptian army is getting closer. It's the sea or death. They walk into the corridor. The ground is wet, muddy in places. Their feet sink slightly with each step. The smell is overwhelming. Seaweed, fish, salt, decay. The smell of the ocean floor exposed to air. The walls of water are on both sides, towering, 10 feet high, 20 feet. It's hard to tell. You can see through the water, see fish, suspended, confused, see seaweed floating, see the light filtering through. The sound is strange. The wind is still blowing, howling. But there's also the sound of water, moving, churning, held in place but not still. It's a low roar, constant, ominous. Children walk close to their parents. Everyone walks close to the center of the path. No one wants to get near the water walls. What if you touch it? What if it pulls you in? The crossing takes hours. 600,000 people don't move quickly, especially not through mud, especially not when they're terrified. The elderly struggle. They slip, fall. People help them up. Keep moving. No one gets left behind. Not now. Not after coming this far. The livestock are confused. Sheep don't like water. They balk, refuse to move, have to be pushed, pulled, carried. But slowly, steadily, the Israelites cross, one foot in front of the other, through the impossible corridor, between the walls of water. Moses is near the front, leading, praying, hoping this works, hoping the water holds. Behind them, the pillar of cloud has moved. It's between the Israelites and the Egyptians now, creating darkness, confusion, buying time. But eventually, the Egyptians see the path, see the dry ground, see the walls of water, and they decide to pursue. This is a mistake. The chariots enter the corridor, wheels rolling, horses galloping, soldiers shouting. They're fast, much faster than people on foot. They'll catch up quickly. But the ground that was merely muddy for the Israelites becomes treacherous for chariots. The wheels sink, stick. The horses stumble, panic. The Egyptians realize too late that this is not working. The chariots are getting bogged down. The wheels are coming off. The horses are falling. By this time, the Israelites have reached the other side. They're out, standing on dry ground, on the far shore, safe. Moses is the last to cross. He turns, looks back, sees the Egyptian army struggling in the mud, trapped. God tells Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea. Moses does. The wind stops. The water walls collapse. All at once, from both sides, tons of water crashing down, into the corridor, onto the Egyptian army. The sound is like thunder, like the world breaking, a roar that drowns out everything. The water swallows the chariots, the horses, the soldiers. It fills the corridor in seconds. No time to run, no time to escape. And then it's over. The sea is back, smooth, calm, as if nothing happened, as if there was never a path. The Israelites stand on the shore, watching, stunned. The Egyptian army is gone, drowned, destroyed. Some bodies wash up on the shore, armor, pieces of chariots, evidence of what just happened, evidence that this was real. The Israelites are safe. For the first time in 400 years, they're not running from Egypt. Egypt is not chasing them. Because Egypt's army is dead, they're free. The realization hits slowly. They're free, actually free. The chains are broken. The taskmasters are gone. The quotas are over. They start singing. Moses leads them. A song of victory, of deliverance. Miriam grabs a tambourine, starts dancing. Other women join her. There's joy, relief, exhaustion, disbelief, all mixed together. But there's also sobering reality. They're in the wilderness now, the Sinai Peninsula, the same place Moses spent 40 years. He knows this place. He knows how harsh it is. They have no food, no water, no plan except to follow the pillar of cloud and fire and hope God knows what he's doing. Ahead of them are 40 years of wandering, 40 years of complaints, 40 years of learning to trust, to obey, to become a people instead of just a collection of escaped slaves. But they don't know that yet. Right now, they're just celebrating, dancing, singing, free. Moses looks at the sea, at the bodies washing ashore, at the people celebrating, at the wilderness ahead. He's 80 years old. He's tired. He's been confronted by Pharaoh 9 times. He's witnessed 10 plagues. He's just led a nation through a sea. And this is just the beginning. The hard part isn't escaping Egypt. The hard part is what comes next. Building a nation, sustaining them, leading them, teaching them. But that's tomorrow's problem. Today, they're free. Today, they're alive. Today, they've witnessed the impossible. Today is enough. The pillar of cloud starts moving. God is leading them deeper into the wilderness, toward Sinai, toward the mountain where Moses met the burning bush. The people gather their things, round up their children, their livestock, and they follow into the unknown, into the desert, into freedom. The Exodus has begun. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites arrive at Mount Sinai. Moses knows this place. He's been here before, 40 years ago. This is where he saw the burning bush, where God spoke to him, where everything changed. Now he's back, but he's not alone. He's brought 600,000 men, plus women, plus children, plus livestock, an entire nation camping at the base of a mountain. The mountain is impressive, imposing. It rises out of the desert floor like a threat, jagged, rocky, dark stone. The kind of mountain that makes you feel small, insignificant. Setting up camp takes days, tents everywhere, families claiming their spots, livestock penned in makeshift enclosures, cook fires smoking, children running, the noise of a nation settling in. God tells Moses to prepare the people, to consecrate them. This is not casual. This is serious. They need to wash their clothes, purify themselves, abstain from certain activities. Moses sets boundaries around the mountain. Physical markers, stones, lines drawn in the sand. No one can cross them. No one can touch the mountain. Anyone who touches the mountain dies immediately. No exceptions. The people are nervous. They've seen what God can do. The plagues, the sea, the pillar of fire at night. They know this is serious. They stay well back from the boundaries. Keep their children close. On the third day, the mountain starts to smoke. Thick smoke, black, dense, like a furnace. It rises into the sky, obscures the summit. You can't see the top anymore, just smoke. The smell drifts down to the camp, not wood smoke. Something else, something sharp, sulphurous. It makes your eyes water, your throat burn. Thunder rolls, not distant thunder. Close, coming from the mountain itself, deep, bone-shaking. The kind of thunder that rattles your chest, that makes children cry. The ground shakes, trembles. Small rocks tumble down the slopes. People lose their balance, grab onto tent poles, onto each other. The earth beneath their feet is not stable, not safe. A trumpet sounds, loud, piercing, getting louder. It's not a human trumpet. The sound is wrong, too pure, too sustained. It doesn't stop for breath. It just keeps going, getting louder and louder. The people are terrified. They stand at a distance, as far from the mountain as they can while still being in camp, trembling, holding their children, watching the mountain smoke and shake and scream with that impossible trumpet sound. Moses goes up, alone, into the smoke, into the presence of God. The people watch him disappear into the darkness, wonder if they'll ever see him again. He's up there for a long time, days. The people wait at the base, watching the smoke, hearing the thunder, wondering what's happening. When Moses comes down, he brings tablets, stone tablets, written on by the finger of God, the 10 Commandments, the foundation of the law. No other gods, no idols. Don't misuse God's name. Keep the Sabbath. Honor your parents. Don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't lie. Don't covet. 10 simple statements. 10 rules that will shape a nation, a culture, a religion. But there's more. Much more. God gives Moses detailed instructions. Laws about social justice, about worship, about property, about relationships, about what to eat, what not to eat, how to live. It's comprehensive, exhaustive. Moses is taking notes, memorizing, trying to keep track of everything. The people hear some of this, the big stuff, the commandments. God speaks them aloud, from the mountain, his voice like thunder. The people beg Moses to stop. They ask him to be the intermediary. They can't handle hearing God directly. It's too much, too overwhelming. They're afraid they'll die. Moses agrees. From now on, he'll go up the mountain. God will speak to him, and Moses will relay the message to the people. This pattern repeats. Moses goes up, stays for days, comes down, tells the people what God said, goes back up. The final time, Moses goes up for 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights. No food, no water. Just Moses and God on the mountain. The people wait. One day, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Moses doesn't come back. They start to get anxious, restless. 40 days is a long time, and Moses is old. What if he died up there? What if he's not coming back? They need a leader. They need something, someone. They go to Aaron, Moses' brother, the spokesman, and they make a request. They ask him to make them gods, something they can see, something tangible. Aaron inexplicably agrees. This is the same Aaron who performed miracles in Egypt, who saw the plagues, who crossed the Red Sea, who stood at the base of the smoking mountain. And he agrees. He tells the people to bring their gold, their jewelry, their earrings, the gold they got from the Egyptians when they left, the gold they were supposed to use for God's tabernacle eventually. They bring it, willingly, eagerly, earrings mostly, nose rings, bracelets, anything gold. They pile it at Aaron's feet, a glittering heap of metal. Aaron builds a fire, a hot fire, the kind you need to melt gold. He feeds it, tends it, waits for it to get hot enough. Then he adds the gold, piece by piece. The jewelry melts, loses its shape, becomes liquid, molten, glowing orange-red in the flames. Aaron pours the liquid gold into a mold. Or maybe he shapes it by hand. The text isn't clear. Either way, he's deliberately creating something. This isn't accidental. This is intentional craftsmanship. The gold cools, hardens, takes shape. A calf, a young bull, the symbol of strength, fertility, power, the kind of image Egypt used for their gods, the kind of idol the Canaanites worship. The calf is probably not large, maybe 3 feet tall, maybe 4, but it's gold, shiny, impressive, reflective. You can see yourself in it, and it's right there, visible, tangible. You can touch it. Unlike the God on the mountain who's hidden in smoke and thunder and fear, Aaron builds an altar in front of the calf, stone, stacked. He declares a festival, a celebration to the Lord. He's trying to have it both ways, to worship the golden calf and claim it's still about the God who brought them out of Egypt. It doesn't work that way. But Aaron tries. It's a party. A raucous, chaotic celebration. The kind that gets louder as the night goes on, as inhibitions drop, as people forget themselves. The text says they rose up to play, which is probably biblical code for things getting out of hand. Dancing, drinking, possibly worse. This is happening at the base of the mountain, the same mountain that's still smoking. The same mountain where God is giving Moses the law, the same law that says no other gods, no idols. The irony is staggering. Moses is up there receiving commandments about not making idols, and down below, the people are worshipping a golden calf. God tells Moses what's happening, tells him to go down. The people have corrupted themselves. They've broken the covenant before it's even fully formed. God is angry, furious. He tells Moses to get out of the way. He's going to destroy them, wipe them out, start over with Moses. Moses argues, pleads, reminds God of his promises, of his reputation. What will Egypt say? That God brought them out just to kill them in the wilderness. Moses convinces God to relent, to spare the people. It's an extraordinary moment. A human talking God out of destruction. Moses comes down the mountain. He's carrying the tablets, the stone tablets with the commandments written by God. Joshua meets him part way. Joshua hears noise from the camp. He thinks it sounds like war, like battle. Moses knows better. He says it's not the sound of victory or defeat. It's the sound of singing, celebration. As they get closer, Moses sees the calf, sees the people dancing, sees the chaos, and he's angry. Not just disappointed, angry. The kind of anger that's been building for months, For years. The kind that finally explodes. He throws the tablets, hurls them at the base of the mountain. They shatter, break into pieces. The tablets written by God, destroyed by Moses. It's a symbolic act. The covenant is broken before it even began. Moses marches into the camp, takes the golden calf, burns it in fire, grinds it to powder, mixes the powder with water, and makes the people drink it. It's a humiliating punishment. They wanted this God? Fine, swallow it, drink it down, taste your idolatry. Moses confronts Aaron, asks him what the people did to him that he'd lead them into such sin. Aaron's excuse is pathetic. He says the people asked for gods. He collected their gold. He threw it in the fire. And out came this calf. As if it was an accident. As if a calf just spontaneously formed from molten gold. Aaron is lying, deflecting, refusing to take responsibility. Moses doesn't have time to deal with Aaron right now. There's a bigger problem. The camp is in chaos, rebellion, sin. Moses stands at the entrance of the camp, calls out, asks who is on the Lord's side, who's committed, who's going to stand with God despite what just happened. The Levites come forward, Moses' own tribe. They rally to him. About 3,000 men, brothers, cousins, relatives, united in their commitment. Moses gives them an order, a terrible order. Take your swords, go through the camp, kill those who worship the calf, execute the ringleaders, the ones who led the rebellion, your brothers, your friends, your neighbors. Don't hesitate, don't show mercy. This sin requires blood, requires justice. It's brutal, shocking. The Levites obey. They draw their swords. They move through the camp, identifying, executing. The sound of it echoes through the camp. Steel on steel, screams, shouting, the thud of bodies falling. It goes on for hours, methodical, systematic. 3,000 people die that day, killed by their own countrymen, executed for idolatry, for betraying the covenant, for choosing a golden calf over the God who saved them. Families are torn apart. A Levite kills his own brother-in-law, his cousin, his childhood friend. The personal cost is enormous. But they do it because Moses commanded it, because God required it. The celebration ends. The dancing stops. The music dies. The camp falls silent. Sobered, horrified. The ground is stained. Bodies are everywhere. The survivors stand in shock, trembling, realizing how close they came to the same fate. This is not theoretical anymore. This is not abstract theology. This is blood, death, consequences. Sin has a cost, and they've just paid it. The next day, Moses tells the people that they've committed a great sin, but he's going to go back up the mountain. He's going to intercede, to plead for forgiveness. Maybe God will forgive them. Moses goes back up, confesses on behalf of the people, begs God to forgive them, and if not, to blot Moses out too. If the people are going to be punished, Moses wants to share their fate. God forgives. Sort of. The people will live. The journey will continue. But there will be consequences. God will send a plague. People will die. The sin has a cost, and God himself won't travel with them. Not directly. He'll send an angel. Because if God goes with them in his full presence, he might destroy them in a moment of anger. They're too rebellious, too stubborn. Moses pleads again. He asks God to reconsider. He argues that if God's presence doesn't go with them, there's no point in going at all. What distinguishes Israel from other nations if not God's presence? God relents. Again, he agrees to go with them. Moses has talked God into mercy twice now. It's becoming a pattern. Moses asks for more. He asks to see God's glory, to see God himself. God agrees. Sort of. He'll let his goodness pass in front of Moses. He'll proclaim his name. But Moses can't see God's face. No one can see God's face and live. So God puts Moses in a cleft of the rock, covers Moses with his hand, and passes by. Moses sees God's back, gets a glimpse of glory, but not the full, unfiltered presence. It's enough, more than enough. Moses comes down from the mountain again, this time with new tablets, replacement tablets, the covenant restored. When Moses comes down, his face is shining, glowing, radiant from being in God's presence. It's so bright that people can't look at him. He has to cover his face with a veil. The people are shaken, sobered. They've seen what happens when they rebel. They've seen the cost of idolatry. They've seen God's mercy and his justice. Moses delivers the rest of the law, instructions for building the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary, a place where God will dwell among them. The people listen. Finally, they're ready to obey, ready to build, ready to do what God asks. The golden calf incident is over, but it won't be forgotten. It becomes a defining moment, a warning, a reminder of how quickly people can fall, how easily faith can be replaced with something shinier, something easier to see. Moses is exhausted. This has been the hardest stretch yet. The plagues were difficult. The sea was dramatic. But this betrayal by his own people, while he was up on the mountain receiving God's law, is deeply personal, deeply painful. But Moses doesn't give up. He doesn't walk away. He keeps leading, keeps interceding, keeps standing between God and the people. This is what leadership looks like. Not glamorous, not triumphant, just persistent, faithful, showing up even when people disappoint you, even when they fail. The camp begins to settle. Order returns. Slowly. The tabernacle project begins. God has given detailed instructions, exact measurements, specific materials, nothing left to chance. The people get to work. They bring offerings, gold, silver, bronze, blue and purple and scarlet yarn, fine linen, goat hair, ram skins, acacia wood, olive oil, spices, precious stones. Some people are chosen for specific tasks. Bezalel and Aholiab, skilled craftsmen, filled with the Spirit of God, given wisdom and ability to create beautiful things. They organize teams, woodworkers, metalworkers, weavers, embroiderers, each person contributing their skills, their time, their effort. The sound of the camp changes, hammering, sawing, the rhythmic clack of looms, people calling instructions, measuring, cutting, sewing, building. Moses oversees it all, walking through the work areas, checking, correcting, making sure everything matches the pattern God showed him on the mountain. The exact pattern. No deviations, no creative interpretations. The curtains must be this long, the boards this wide, the altar this height, the lampstand this shape. Everything has a purpose, a meaning, a connection to the larger story. It's going to take months, maybe a year. But the work has begun. The people are unified again, focused on something constructive instead of destructive, building instead of rebelling. The law has been given. The covenant has been restored. The presence of God will dwell among them. Sinai is behind them. The wilderness is ahead. And Moses is still leading, still learning, still figuring out how to guide a nation of stubborn, rebellious, redeemed people. It's going to be a long journey. But for now, they're moving forward, one step at a time. 40 years in the wilderness is not one continuous dramatic event. It's not plagues and miracles and burning bushes every day. Most days are just days, routine, mundane, the same thing over and over. Let's talk about what that actually looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like. Because if you want to understand the Israelites, you need to understand the daily grind, the repetition, the way the wilderness becomes both home and prison. You wake up at dawn. Every day, the sun rises. The temperature starts climbing. You need to get moving before it gets unbearable. You step out of your tent. The ground is covered in dew, or something like dew. It's manna, small, white, flaky, like frost. It appeared overnight. It appears every night. This is your food. This is what you'll eat today. Bread from heaven. Miraculous provision. But after a few weeks, it stops feeling miraculous. It just feels like breakfast. You grab a basket, an omer, about 2 quarts worth. That's your daily portion. You go out and gather it, bend down, scoop, fill the basket. It doesn't take long. The manna is everywhere. You have to gather it early, before the sun gets too hot, because once the sun rises high, the manna melts, evaporates, disappears. If you sleep in, you don't eat. On the 6th day, you gather twice as much, because there's no manna on the Sabbath. You gather enough for 2 days, and miraculously, it doesn't spoil. The double portion stays fresh. Any other day, if you try to save it overnight, it rots, breeds worms, stinks. You learn quickly not to hoard, not to gather more than you need. The manna tastes like wafers made with honey, or like coriander seed. The Bible gives both descriptions. Maybe it tastes different depending on how you prepare it. You can grind it, make flour, bake it into bread. You can boil it, make a kind of porridge. You can pound it in a mortar, mix it with oil, form it into cakes. Some families prefer it ground fine, almost like powder. They mix it with water, knead it, shape it into flat rounds, bake it on hot stones. The result is like crackers, crispy, plain. Others grind it coarse, leave texture. They add oil, sometimes honey if they can get it. The cakes come out denser, chewier, more filling. Some boil it first, let it soften in water, then mash it. The porridge is warm, comforting on cold mornings, but it's bland, needs something. Salt helps, if you have it. The children prefer the honey wafer style. Sweet, simple. They'll eat it without complaining. Usually. But it's still manna. Every day, every meal, for 40 years. At first people are grateful. It's food, free food, appearing every morning. No work required beyond gathering, no planting, no harvesting, no waiting for seasons. It's amazing. But after a month, people start complaining. They remember Egypt, the food in Egypt, fish, fresh fish from the Nile, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, garlic, variety, flavor. Different things on different days. Here, it's just manna. Manna for breakfast, manna for lunch, manna for dinner, manna bread, manna cakes, manna porridge, still manna. Moses hears the complaints. God hears the complaints. Eventually, God sends quail, flocks of them. So many quail that they cover the camp. People gather them, eat meat, for once. But that doesn't happen often. Mostly, it's manna, day after day, year after year. You develop routines, ways to make it more interesting. You trade recipes. You experiment. One family grinds it fine. Another crushes it coarse. Someone figures out how to make it crispy. Someone else prefers it soft. But it's still manna. Water is another constant concern. The wilderness doesn't have reliable water sources. Sometimes God provides water from rocks. Moses strikes a rock with his staff. Water pours out. Enough for everyone. But you can't count on that every day. You have to ration. You have to be careful. You carry water in jars, in skins. You use it sparingly. Bathing is a luxury. You don't waste water on full baths. You wipe down with damp cloths. You wash your face, your hands. your feet when they're unbearably dusty. Everyone smells. The animals smell. The camp smells. It's a combination of sweat and livestock and cooking fires and unwashed bodies and desert dust. You get used to it. After a while, you don't notice anymore. It's just the smell of life. The camp is massive. 600,000 men, plus women, plus children. We're talking about 2 million people, maybe more, spread across the desert. When the pillar of cloud moves, the entire camp has to move. This is not a quick process. This is logistics on an impossible scale. The signal comes, the cloud lifts, starts moving. Everyone knows what that means. Time to pack up. You take down your tent, roll up the fabric, tie it into bundles, load it onto donkeys or carts. Pack your cooking pots, your jars, your blankets, your tools. The Levites dismantle the tabernacle, carefully, methodically, each piece wrapped, covered, protected. The ark, the table, the lampstand, the altar, the curtains. Everything has a specific way it must be carried. Certain families are assigned to carry certain items. It's organized, structured, but it's still chaos. 2 million people trying to move at the same time. Children are crying, lost, separated from parents. Adults are shouting, calling names, trying to keep families together. Animals are braying, bleating, resisting. Donkeys refuse to move. Sheep scatter. Goats wander off. You walk in a long, slow procession. Dust everywhere. The person in front of you kicks up dust. It gets in your eyes, your mouth, your throat. You tie a cloth over your face. It helps. A little. The sun beats down. It's hot, always hot during the day. You're sweating through your tunic. Your feet hurt. Your sandals are wearing thin. Again. You walk for hours, sometimes days, following the cloud. You don't know where you're going. You don't know when you'll stop. You just follow. Eventually, the cloud stops, settles. That's the signal. This is where you're camping. For now. You find a spot. Claim your piece of ground. Set up your tent again. Unpack. Settle in. How long will you be here? A day? A week? A month? A year? You don't know. The cloud decides. God decides. You wait. The repetition is mind-numbing. Set up camp. Gather manna. Wait. Pack up. Walk. Set up camp. Gather manna. Wait. Over and over. For 40 years. But within the routine, there's life. Children are born. They grow up in the wilderness. They don't remember Egypt. This is all they know. Manna. Tents. Moving. People get married. Ceremonies under the stars. Celebrations with limited resources. Making the best of it. People get sick. Injured. Old. They die. Graves in the wilderness. Marked with stones. Left behind when the camp moves. There are disputes. Arguments. People living in close quarters for decades tend to get on each other's nerves. Who gets the better camping spot? Whose goat wandered into whose tent? Whose child hit whose child? Moses adjudicates. He sits and listens to disputes all day, every day, until his father-in-law Jethro suggests a better system. Appoint judges. Delegate. Let them handle the small stuff. Moses only handles the big cases. It helps, but it's still exhausting. The constant need for leadership, for decisions, for wisdom. The tabernacle becomes the center of camp. Literally, it's set up in the middle. The tribes arrange themselves around it, each tribe in its designated spot. Order, structure. Every morning and evening sacrifices are offered. The smell of burning meat, incense, blood. It's familiar, comforting in its routine. The priests perform their duties. Aaron and his sons, they wear their special garments. They maintain the lampstand. They change the showbread. They tend the altar. It's all very organized, very ritual. But it's also just life, just what you do, day after day. The Sabbath provides a break in the routine. 1 day a week, you rest. You don't gather manna. You don't work. You don't travel even if the cloud moves. Actually, the cloud never moves on the Sabbath. God rests too. Or at least God lets the people rest. People sit outside their tents, talk, tell stories. The old people talk about Egypt. The young people ask questions. What was it like? What did you do there? The memories get softer with time, selective. People forget the brick quotas, the beatings. They remember the food, the security, the predictability. Some people start to romanticize slavery. At least in Egypt, we knew what to expect. At least we had variety in our diet. At least we weren't wandering aimlessly in a desert. Moses hears this, confronts it, reminds them, you were slaves. You cried out to God for freedom. God answered, and now you want to go back? But people have short memories, especially when they're uncomfortable, when they're tired, when they're eating manna for the 10,000th time. The wilderness is not kind. People die from snake bites, from disease, from old age, from rebellions that go badly. There's the incident with Korah, a Levite who challenges Moses' authority, who asks why Moses gets to be in charge, who gathers supporters, who stages a rebellion. The earth opens up, swallows them. Korah and his followers, gone. It's a terrifying reminder. Don't rebel, don't question. Follow the leader God appointed. There are victories too. Battles with hostile tribes, the Amalekites, the Midianites, others who see the Israelites as invaders, as threats. The Israelites learn to fight. They're not soldiers, not at first, but they become soldiers. Out of necessity, out of survival. Joshua leads many of these battles. Young Joshua, Moses' assistant, learning, preparing for the day when he'll have to lead. But mostly, life in the wilderness is not battles and rebellions and miracles. It's just days. Ordinary, difficult, repetitive days. You wake up, gather manna, tend your animals, do your chores, listen for the trumpet that signals the cloud is moving, pack up or stay put, eat, sleep, repeat, for 40 years. An entire generation grows old in the wilderness, dies in the wilderness. The people who left Egypt as adults never enter the promised land. They're not allowed. Punishment for their lack of faith, for their constant complaining. Only their children will enter. The generation that grew up in the wilderness, that doesn't remember Egypt. That only knows manna and tents and following the cloud. Moses watches this happen, watches his contemporaries die off, watches the new generation emerge. It's bittersweet, necessary, but painful. The wilderness shapes them, strips them down, removes the slave mentality, the Egyptian influence, makes them depend entirely on God. Because out here, you can't survive on your own. You need manna from heaven, water from rocks, guidance from a cloud, protection from enemies. You learn trust, or you die. Those are the options. It's not a fast process. It takes time. 40 years of time, 40 years of gathering manna, 40 years of following the cloud, 40 years of learning what it means to be God's people. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, they become a nation. Not just escaped slaves, not just wanderers, a people, united, defined by their covenant, their law, their God. The wilderness is their crucible, their training ground, their transformation. And when the 40 years are finally up, when the cloud finally leads them to the border of the promised land, they're ready. Not the people who left Egypt. They're gone, buried in the wilderness. But their children, the wilderness generation, they're ready. Ready to fight, ready to trust, ready to enter. But that's later. For now, they're still in the wilderness, still gathering manna, still following the cloud, still learning, still becoming. one day at a time. The tabernacle is not a quick project. It takes months, nearly a year from start to finish, and every detail matters. Every measurement, every stitch, every hammered piece of metal. Because this is not just a tent. This is the dwelling place of God, the place where heaven meets earth, where the infinite condescends to the finite. Moses has seen the pattern. On the mountain, God showed him exactly how it should look, exactly how it should be built. And now Moses has to translate that vision into physical reality. The first step is gathering materials. God tells the people to bring offerings, whatever they're willing to give. And the people respond, generously, almost too generously. They bring gold, lots of gold, the gold they got from the Egyptians when they left, the gold they were wearing, the gold they've been carrying through the wilderness. They bring silver, bronze, blue yarn, purple yarn, scarlet yarn, fine linen, goat hair for the outer coverings, ram skins dyed red, another type of durable leather for the outermost layer. They bring acacia wood, the only wood available in the Sinai, hard, dense, resistant to insects and rot, perfect for the desert. They bring olive oil for the lamps, spices for the anointing oil, for the incense, onyx stones, other precious gems for the high priest's garments. The offerings pile up, more than enough. Moses eventually has to tell people to stop bringing things. There's too much. The craftsmen have everything they need. This is a remarkable moment. A nation of former slaves, living in tents, eating manna, giving freely, sacrificially, because they want to build a dwelling place for God. The craftsmen are chosen carefully. Bezalel from the tribe of Judah, Oholiab from the tribe of Dan. God fills them with his spirit, gives them skill, wisdom, understanding, the ability to create beautiful things. They're not just builders, they're artists, designers, masters of their crafts, and they train others, teach others, create teams of skilled workers. The work begins. Different teams focus on different components. Each piece has specific instructions, specific dimensions. Nothing is left to chance. The ark is made first, the most sacred object, a box of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, about 45 inches, 1.5 cubits wide, 1.5 cubits high. It's overlaid with pure gold, inside and out, gold covering every surface, a gold molding around the edge, a decorative border. 4 gold rings are cast, attached to the 4 feet, 2 on each side. Poles of acacia wood are made, overlaid with gold, threaded through the rings. The poles never come out. The ark is always ready to be carried, never touched by human hands. The mercy seat is crafted, the lid of the ark, pure gold, hammered, shaped. 2 cherubim are formed, angelic figures, wings spread upward, covering, protecting, facing each other, looking down at the mercy seat. This is where God will meet with Moses, between the cherubim, above the mercy seat, the most holy place. The table is built, acacia wood, 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, 1.5 cubits high, overlaid with gold, a gold molding around the edge, a rim a handbreadth wide, another molding around the rim, 4 gold rings, 4 gold-covered poles for carrying. Plates and dishes and pitchers and bowls are made, all of pure gold, for the bread of the presence, 12 loaves, representing the 12 tribes, always before God. The lampstand is crafted. This is the most intricate piece, pure gold, hammered, not cast, 1 solid piece, a central shaft with 6 branches, 3 on each side. Each branch has decorative cups, shaped like almond blossoms, buds and petals, beautiful, detailed. The lampstand weighs a talent of gold, about 75 pounds, all gold. 7 lamps sit on top, olive oil burning, light, always light in the holy place, never dark. The altar of incense is made, small, 1 cubit square, 2 cubits high, acacia wood overlaid with gold, horns on each corner, a gold moulding, rings and poles for carrying. This sits in the holy place, before the veil. Incense burns twice daily, morning and evening. The smoke rises, a sweet aroma, prayers ascending. The altar of burnt offering is larger, 5 cubits square, 3 cubits high, acacia wood overlaid with bronze, horns on the corners, a bronze grating, bronze pots and shovels and basins, everything needed for sacrifices. This sits outside, in the courtyard, where the blood is shed, where the fire burns, where the offerings are made. The bronze basin is cast, large, for washing. The priests wash their hands and feet before entering the holy place. Before offering sacrifices, the basin sits between the altar and the tent. Water for purification. The curtains are woven. This is where the weavers shine, the skilled women, working with blue and purple and scarlet yarn, fine linen, creating fabric with cherubim worked into it, embroidered, intricate. 10 curtains for the interior, each 28 cubits long, 4 cubits wide, sewn together, loops of blue, gold clasps, creating one continuous covering. 11 curtains of goat hair, slightly larger, covering the linen curtains, protecting them. Coverings of ram skins dyed red, another layer of protection. And finally, an outer covering of durable leather, weather-resistant. The practical exterior. The frames are constructed, acacia wood, upright frames, 10 cubits high, 1.5 cubits wide, overlaid with gold. Each frame has 2 tenons, fitted into silver bases, 20 frames for the south side, 20 for the north, 6 for the west. The frames are connected with crossbars, 5 for each side, also acacia wood, also gold covered, slipping through gold rings, creating structure, stability. The veil is made, the curtain that separates the holy place from the most holy place, blue and purple and scarlet yarn, fine linen, cherubim worked into it, hung on 4 gold-covered posts, silver bases. This is the barrier, the separation between God's presence and humanity. Only the high priest can pass through. Once a year, on the Day of Atonement, another curtain for the entrance. Similar colors, different design. No cherubim, hung on 5 posts, bronze bases. This marks the entrance to the holy place. The courtyard is defined. Linen curtains, white, 5 cubits high, 100 cubits long on the south and north sides, 50 cubits wide on the east and west ends. Bronze posts, silver bands, silver hooks, bronze bases, creating an enclosure, a sacred space, set apart from the rest of the camp. The gate for the courtyard is made, blue and purple and scarlet yarn, fine linen, embroidered, 20 cubits wide, hung on 4 posts. The entrance to the sacred space. Every piece is inspected. Moses walks through, examines the work, compares it to the pattern, the vision he saw on the mountain. Everything must match. Exactly. And it does. The craftsmen have been faithful, meticulous. The work is excellent, beautiful, functional, holy. The tabernacle is assembled for the first time, on the first day of the first month, almost a year after leaving Egypt. The frames are erected, the curtains hung, the sacred objects placed. The ark goes into the most holy place, behind the veil. The table goes on the north side of the holy place, the lampstand on the south side, the altar of incense before the veil. The altar of burnt offering is set up at the entrance. The bronze basin between the altar and the tent, everything in its place, everything as God commanded. Moses anoints everything, the tabernacle, the altar, the basin, all the furnishings, consecrating them, setting them apart for sacred use. Aaron and his sons are anointed, washed, dressed in their priestly garments, consecrated for service, for their role as mediators between God and the people. And then the cloud descends. The pillar of cloud that has been leading them. It settles over the tabernacle, covers it. The glory of God fills the interior, so intense that even Moses cannot enter. This is what they've been building toward, a place for God to dwell, not far away, not distant, not abstract, but here, among them. In the center of the camp, the tabernacle becomes the focal point, the heart of the community, where sacrifices are offered, where sins are atoned for, where God meets with his people. It's portable, designed to be taken down and carried, to move with them through the wilderness. Wherever they go, God's dwelling goes with them. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. The symbolism is rich, but at its core, the tabernacle is simple. It's a tent in a camp of tents. God choosing to dwell among his people, in their midst, not above them, with them. The construction is complete, the vision realized, the pattern followed, and God is present, tangibly, visibly, the cloud by day, the fire by night. The wilderness has a center now, a place to orient toward, a reminder that they're not wandering aimlessly, they're following God, and God is with them. The tabernacle will serve them well through the rest of the wilderness years, through the conquest of the promised land, for generations, until one day a temple will replace it, built by Solomon, permanent, magnificent, but the principle remains the same, God dwelling with his people, and even further in the future, the ultimate tabernacle, God himself becoming human, dwelling among his people. The Word made flesh, tabernacling with humanity. But that's a different story. For now, the tent stands, the cloud hovers, and the people know God is with them. They're getting close. After wandering for almost 2 years, they're finally at the border, the edge of the promised land, Canaan, the land flowing with milk and honey, the land God promised to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, the land their ancestors dreamed about, the reason they left Egypt, the goal, the destination. It's right there, just ahead. Moses sends scouts, spies, 12 of them, one from each tribe, leaders, respected men. Their job is simple. Go into the land, look around, report back. What's the land like? Fertile or poor, forested or open? What are the cities like? Fortified or undefended? What are the people like? Strong or weak? Many or few? Bring back samples, fruit, whatever grows there. Show us what we're walking into. The 12 men go. They enter Canaan from the south, from the wilderness of Zin. They walk north, through the Negev, up into the hill country, all the way to the far north, to Rehob, near Lebo Hamath. They're gone for 40 days of reconnaissance, observing, taking notes, gathering evidence. They see cities, large cities, fortified cities, walls, thick walls, high walls, gates made of bronze, towers, defensive positions. These cities are built to withstand sieges. They see people, the inhabitants, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Jebusites, different tribes, different groups, all living in the land, and they see the Anakim, giants, descendants of Anak, people of great size, tall, powerful, intimidating. The spies feel small next to them, like grasshoppers. That's the word they'll use later, grasshoppers. But they also see the land itself, and the land is good, incredibly good, fertile, green, productive. They come to the valley of Eshcol. Eshcol means cluster, and they understand why when they see the grapes, enormous grapes. clusters so large that it takes 2 men to carry one cluster on a pole between them. They cut down a branch, a single branch with one cluster of grapes. They sling it on a pole, 1 man in front, 1 man behind, carrying it like a prize, like evidence. They also gather pomegranates, figs, other fruit, samples to bring back, proof of the land's abundance. After 40 days they return. They come back to the camp at Kadesh, in the wilderness of Paran. The entire community gathers to hear their report. The spies present their evidence. They show the fruit, the massive grapes, the pomegranates, the figs. Everyone stares, murmurs. The land is clearly productive. The spies describe what they saw. They confirm that the land flows with milk and honey, just as God said. The fertility is real. The abundance is real. But there's always a but. The people who live there are powerful, strong. The cities are fortified, large, well defended. And the Anakim are there, giants, warriors. 10 of the spies give a negative report. They say the land is good, but the obstacles are insurmountable. They can't take the land. The people are too strong. The cities are too fortified. The giants are too big. They say it's a land that devours its inhabitants, that everyone they saw was large, powerful, that they felt like grasshoppers, and in the eyes of the giants, they looked like grasshoppers too. 2 of the spies disagree, Caleb and Joshua. They give a different assessment. They say, yes, the land is good. Yes, the people are strong, but they can take it. With God's help, God is with them. God promised them this land. They should go up immediately and take possession. The community doesn't listen to Caleb and Joshua. They listen to the 10, to the fear, to the pessimism. Panic spreads through the camp. The people cry out. They weep all night, wailing, lamenting. The sound echoes across the wilderness. They turn on Moses and Aaron. They complain. They wish they had died in Egypt or in the wilderness. Why did God bring them here just to die by the sword? Their wives and children will be taken as plunder. They talk about going back, returning to Egypt. They propose choosing a new leader, someone who will take them back to slavery, back to Egypt, because apparently slavery is better than facing giants. Moses and Aaron fall face down, in front of the entire assembly, prostrate, grief-stricken, overwhelmed. Joshua and Caleb tear their clothes, a sign of mourning, of distress. They plead with the people. They beg them to reconsider. The land is good, exceedingly good. If God is pleased with them, He'll give them the land, a land flowing with milk and honey. They urge the people not to rebel, not to fear. God is with them. The protection over the Canaanites has been removed. God will give them victory. The assembly ignores them. Worse, they talk about stoning them, killing Joshua and Caleb, silencing the dissent, and then the glory of the Lord appears at the tent of meeting, visible to everyone, a manifestation of divine presence and divine anger. God speaks to Moses, asks how long the people will treat him with contempt. How long will they refuse to believe despite all the signs he's performed? God proposes destroying them, striking them with a plague, starting over with Moses, making Moses into a greater nation. Moses intercedes. Again, he pleads for the people, reminds God of his reputation, of what the Egyptians will say, of what the other nations will hear, that God couldn't bring his people into the land, that he killed them in the wilderness. Moses appeals to God's character, to his mercy, his forgiveness, his patience. He quotes God's own words back to him. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, forgiving sin and rebellion. Moses asks God to forgive the people, as he's done before. Over and over, God relents. He'll forgive. The people won't be destroyed. But there will be consequences. Serious consequences. God declares a sentence, a judgment. Not one of the adults who left Egypt will enter the promised land. Not one. Except Caleb and Joshua. The two who trusted. The two who believed. Everyone else. They'll die in the wilderness. Their bodies will fall in this desert. They wanted to die here. They'll get their wish. And for every day the spies spent scouting the land, 40 days, the people will wander for a year, 40 years, 1 year for each day, 40 years in the wilderness. The children they were so worried about, the ones they said would be taken as plunder, those children will enter the land. They'll inherit what their parents rejected. But the current generation? They're done. They've reached their limit. They complained too much, doubted too much, refused to trust too many times. The 10 spies who gave the bad report, they die immediately, struck down by a plague, right there, a swift, decisive punishment. Only Joshua and Caleb remain, the two who believed, the two who will survive the 40 years, the two who will enter the land. Moses tells the people God's verdict, and the response is immediate. Mourning, grief, regret. The next morning, some of them decide to fix it. To prove they're not afraid, they announce they're going to go up and take the land after all. They've sinned, they admit it, but now they're ready to fight. Moses warns them, don't do it. God is not with you now. The Lord won't be with you. You'll be defeated. They don't listen. They go anyway. Presumptuous, arrogant, trying to undo what they broke. They march up into the hill country, without the ark, without Moses, without God's blessing. The Amalekites and Canaanites come down, attack, defeat them decisively. The Israelites are routed, beaten. They flee back to camp, humiliated. The lesson is clear. You can't enter on your own terms. You can't decide when to obey after you've already rebelled. The moment has passed, so the wandering begins. 40 years, not the 2-year journey it could have been. 40 years. They turn away from the promised land, head back into the wilderness, the same wilderness they've already crossed, the same rocks, the same sand, the same heat. The pillars of cloud and fire continue to lead them. But now they're not leading toward anything. They're just leading, in circles, through the wilderness, waiting for a generation to die off. It's a strange kind of judgment. Not immediate death, slow death, natural death, death by time. The people grow old, get sick, die, one by one, month by month, year by year. Every funeral is a reminder. You didn't trust. You didn't believe, and now you'll never see the promise fulfilled. The routine continues. Wake up, gather manna, move when the cloud moves, set up camp, repeat. But now there's no destination, no goal, just time, waiting, wandering. Moses leads them, still, even though he knows he won't enter either. That comes later. His own disqualification, his own moment of failure. But for now, he leads, the faithful shepherd of a dying generation. Years pass, 5, 10, 20. The camp gets smaller, fewer tents, fewer people. The generation that left Egypt is dying off, exactly as God said. The children grow up. They don't remember Egypt. They barely remember the fear at Kadesh. They only know the wilderness, the manna, the routine, the waiting. They become the new generation, the wilderness generation, shaped by 40 years of wandering, 40 years of depending on God, 40 years of watching their parents' faithlessness and its consequences. They learn the lesson their parents didn't. Trust matters, obedience matters, faith matters. When God says to go, you go. When God says the land is good, you believe it. 30 years pass, 35. The original adults are almost all gone. Just a few left, old, tired, carrying the regret of Kadesh until their dying day. 40 years after the spy mission, the wandering ends. The judgment is complete. The sentence served. The generation that refused to enter has died in the wilderness. Only Moses, Joshua, and Caleb remain from that original group. 3 survivors, 3 men who will see the border again. The promised land is still there, still waiting, still flowing with milk and honey. The Canaanites are still there. The giants are still there. Nothing has changed about the challenge, but everything has changed about the people. They're ready now, ready to trust, ready to fight, ready to enter. The 40 years weren't wasted. They were necessary, painful but necessary. The wilderness shaped them, prepared them, made them into who they needed to be. And now, finally, they're at the border again, standing where their parents stood 40 years earlier. This time will be different. This time, they'll go in. But Moses won't lead them. His time is ending. His story is almost complete. One more speech, one more mountain, one more glimpse of the land. And then Moses will die. His work finished, his task complete. But first, there's one more thing he needs to do. One more failure, one more consequence, one more reminder that even the great Moses is still human, still fallible, still subject to the same rules as everyone else. Moses is 120 years old. His eyes are not weak. His strength has not left him. He's still sharp, still capable, still leading. But his time is ending. He knows it. God has told him. There's a reason Moses won't enter the promised land. It's not just age. It's not just passing the torch to Joshua. Moses disqualified himself. Years earlier, at Meribah, the people were complaining. Again, about water. Again, there was no water. The community was thirsty, angry, turning on Moses. The usual pattern. God told Moses to speak to the rock. Just speak to it, and water would flow. A miracle, provision, simple. But Moses was frustrated, exhausted. 40 years of complaints, 40 years of the same arguments, 40 years of people doubting God despite miracle after miracle. So when Moses stood before the rock, he didn't speak to it. He spoke to the people, harshly. He called them rebels, asked if he and Aaron needed to bring water from the rock for them. Then he struck the rock with his staff, twice, hard, angry blows. Water poured out, abundantly. The people drank. Their livestock drank. The physical need was met. But Moses had disobeyed. He struck instead of spoke. He lost his temper. He made it about himself and Aaron instead of about God. He didn't treat God as holy in the sight of the people. The consequence was immediate. God told Moses he wouldn't enter the land. He could see it, but he couldn't enter it. Moses pleaded. He begged God to reconsider, to let him cross over, just to see the good land, the mountains, Lebanon, just to step foot in it. God refused, told Moses to stop asking. The decision was final. Moses had gone far enough. He would not cross the Jordan. So now, 40 years later, Moses stands at the edge. The people are camped in the plains of Moab, across the Jordan from Jericho. The promised land is right there, visible from where they stand. Moses gathers the people, all of them, the new generation, the ones who grew up in the wilderness, the ones who will enter. He speaks to them for days, weeks, long speeches, reminders, instructions, warnings. He recounts their history, everything that happened. Egypt, the Red Sea, Sinai, the golden calf, the spies, the wandering, all of it. He repeats the law, the commandments, the statutes, the ordinances, everything God gave him, everything they need to know to live in the land. He warns them about idolatry, about forgetting God, about becoming comfortable and self-sufficient and thinking they did it all themselves. He reminds them that God is giving them the land, not because they're righteous, not because they're special, but because God made promises to their ancestors. And because the current inhabitants are wicked, he tells them to love God with all their heart, soul, strength, to teach the commands to their children, to talk about them at home and on the road, when they lie down and when they get up. He sets before them a choice, life and death, blessing and curse. Obedience leads to life, disobedience leads to death. It's that simple, that clear. He calls heaven and earth as witnesses. This is their moment, their generation, their chance. Don't blow it like your parents did. Moses blesses the tribes, one by one. Prophetic words, hopes for their future, characteristics, destinies. He speaks over them like a father blessing his children. And then Moses says goodbye. He commissions Joshua publicly, in front of everyone. Joshua will lead them now. Joshua will take them into the land. Joshua will be strong and courageous because God will be with him. Moses writes down the law, all of it, gives it to the priests, instructs them to read it publicly every 7 years so the people never forget, so each generation hears what God requires. Then Moses goes, alone. He climbs Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, across from Jericho. It's not an easy climb for a 120-year-old man, but Moses is still strong. His legs still work. He climbs. The view from the top is spectacular. You can see for miles, in every direction. God shows him the land, all of it, pointed out, region by region, Gilead as far as Dan, all of Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, all of Judah as far as the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev, the whole valley of Jericho, the city of palms, as far as Zor. Moses looks, takes it in. This is the land, the promise, the goal, everything they've been walking toward for 40 years. It's green, fertile, beautiful. The Jordan River snakes through the valley below. Cities dot the landscape, fields, orchards, vineyards, life. Moses can see Jericho, the first city they'll conquer. He can see the hills beyond, the places where his people will settle, build homes, plant crops, raise families. God tells him this is the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To their descendants, Moses is seeing it, but he won't cross over, won't step foot in it. There's something bittersweet about this moment. Moses has led them this far, done everything God asked, carried this burden for 40 years, and now he has to stop, right at the edge, right before the finish line. But Moses doesn't argue, doesn't complain. He's accepted it. This is where his story ends, on a mountain, looking at a promise fulfilled for others but not for himself. Moses dies there, on Mount Nebo, in the land of Moab, at 120 years old. His eyes still clear, his strength still present. He doesn't die of illness, doesn't waste away. He just dies, because it's time. God buries him, personally. The text says so. God buries Moses in the valley, in Moab, opposite Beth Peor. No one knows where his grave is. Not then, not now. It's a secret, hidden. This prevents people from making it a shrine, from worshipping at Moses' grave instead of worshipping God. Moses is gone, the great prophet, the lawgiver, the man who spoke with God face to face, the liberator, the leader, gone. The people mourn for 30 days. They weep, sit in grief. The plains of Moab are filled with the sound of lamentation, an entire generation grieving their leader. Joshua takes over, filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses laid hands on him. The people listen to Joshua, obey him as God commanded, but they know No one will be like Moses. No prophet will rise in Israel like him. No one will know God face to face the way Moses did. No one will perform the signs and wonders Moses performed in Egypt, in the wilderness, before all Israel. Moses was unique, singular, a once-in-history kind of leader, and now he's gone. But his work remains, the law remains, the covenant remains, the people he shaped remain. They're standing at the edge of the promised land, ready to enter, ready to become what God intended. Moses brought them this far, from slavery to freedom, from Egypt to the edge of Canaan, from chaos to covenant, from a mob of slaves to a nation under God. He didn't get to finish the journey, didn't get to cross the Jordan, didn't get to see the conquest, the settlement, the fulfillment, but he did enough, more than enough. He was faithful, obedient, persistent, even in the face of constant rebellion, constant complaining, constant doubt. Moses served his generation, led them, interceded for them, taught them, shaped them. And when his work was done, he died. The land is still there, waiting. The promise is still good. The covenant is still active. And the people are ready. Finally, after 40 years, after all the failures and wanderings and learning, they're ready to enter, to inherit, to become what they were always meant to be. Moses' story is finished, but their story is just beginning. Moses died on Mount Nebo around 1400 BCE, give or take. The exact date is debatable, but what's not debatable is what happened next. His story didn't end. It multiplied, branched, became foundational to not one religion, but three: Judaism, Christianity, Islam. The three great monotheistic faiths. All of them trace their roots back to Moses in some way, but they remember him differently, emphasize different aspects, tell slightly different versions of his story. Not contradictory, exactly, just different angles, different focuses, different lessons. Let's talk about how each tradition views Moses, what they celebrate, what they emphasize, how they've kept his memory alive for over 3,000 years. In Judaism, Moses is Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses our teacher, Moses our rabbi. The title says everything. He's not just a historical figure. He's the teacher, the definitive teacher, the one who taught Israel who they were, what God required, how to live. Moses is the lawgiver, the man who received the Torah on Mount Sinai, the man who transmitted God's word to the people. The Torah itself is sometimes called the Torah of Moses. The 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, all attributed to Moses, written by him, or at least compiled under his authority. Jewish tradition goes further. It claims Moses received not just the written Torah, but the oral Torah as well. The interpretations, the explanations, the layers of meaning that would later be written down in the Talmud. All of it traces back to Moses, standing on Sinai, receiving everything. This makes Moses uniquely authoritative. When rabbis debate the meaning of a law, the question is always what Moses meant, what Moses intended, what Moses transmitted. His authority is absolute, his interpretation is definitive. But Moses is also remembered for his humility. The Torah itself says Moses was the most humble man on earth, more humble than anyone. This is remarkable. The man who spoke with God face to face, who performed miracles, who led a nation, was humble. Jewish tradition emphasizes this. Moses didn't want the job. He argued with God, resisted the call. When he finally accepted, he never took credit, never sought glory, always pointed to God. This humility makes Moses the ideal leader, the model, not perfect. He made mistakes, lost his temper, failed to enter the promised land. But he was faithful, humble, obedient. devoted to his people even when they frustrated him. Every year at Passover, Jews retell the Exodus story. They read from the Haggadah. The telling, they eat matzah, unleavened bread, like the bread the Israelites ate when they fled Egypt. They taste bitter herbs, remembering the bitterness of slavery. Moses is central to this story, but interestingly, his name is barely mentioned in the traditional Haggadah. This is intentional. The focus is on God, on divine deliverance, not on Moses, not on human agency. God saved them. Moses was the instrument, but God was the actor. This is how Judaism remembers Moses: essential but not central, authoritative but not divine, the greatest prophet, but still just a prophet, a human being who encountered God and was transformed by it, who transformed his people in turn. In Christianity, Moses is remembered differently, not less important, just different emphasis, different role in the larger narrative. Christians see Moses as a prophet, a forerunner, a type, someone who pointed forward to something greater, to someone greater, to Jesus. The connections are everywhere. Moses delivered Israel from slavery in Egypt. Jesus delivers humanity from slavery to sin. Moses gave the law on a mountain. Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount. Moses lifted up a bronze serpent in the wilderness for healing. Jesus was lifted up on a cross for salvation. The parallels are intentional, deliberate. The New Testament writers saw Jesus as the new Moses, the greater Moses, the one Moses himself prophesied about. In Deuteronomy, Moses tells the people that God will raise up a prophet like him from among their brothers. The people should listen to that prophet. Christians believe that prophet is Jesus. There's a story in the Gospels called the Transfiguration. Jesus goes up a mountain, takes Peter, James, and John with him. And on the mountain, Jesus is transformed. His face shines like the sun. His clothes become white, dazzling. And who appears with him? Moses and Elijah, the law and the prophets. Moses representing the law, Elijah representing the prophets. Both of them standing with Jesus, talking with him about his coming death in Jerusalem. It's a profound moment. Moses, who died 1500 years earlier, appears, recognizable, present, bearing witness to Jesus, affirming him, passing the torch. Peter wants to build shelters, tabernacles, for Jesus, Moses, and Elijah. He wants to preserve the moment, make it permanent. But a cloud overshadows them. God's voice speaks, declaring Jesus as his beloved Son, telling them to listen to him. When the cloud lifts, Moses and Elijah are gone. Only Jesus remains. The symbolism is clear. The law and the prophets pointed to Jesus, prepared for Jesus. But now Jesus is here. Listen to him. This doesn't diminish Moses. Christians revere Moses, study his life, learn from his example. The story of the Exodus is their story too. Deliverance, redemption, freedom. These themes resonate deeply. But in Christian theology, Moses is part of a larger story, a chapter, not the conclusion. The law he gave was good, holy, necessary, but it couldn't save. It could only diagnose, point out sin, create awareness of the need for a savior. Jesus is that savior, the one the law pointed toward, the one Moses foreshadowed, the greater deliverer, the final sacrifice, the complete fulfillment. Christians read the Exodus story and see baptism, passing through the Red Sea, dying to the old life, rising to the new. They see the manna and think of Jesus calling himself the bread of life, the true bread from heaven. They see Moses interceding for the people and think of Jesus interceding at the right hand of God. Moses the mediator, Jesus the ultimate mediator. Moses the prophet, Jesus the final word. This is how Christianity remembers Moses. With honor, with respect, with gratitude, but always pointing beyond him, to Jesus, the one Moses served without knowing it, the one the whole story was building toward. In Islam, Moses is Musa, one of the greatest prophets, one of the most frequently mentioned figures in the Quran. His story appears again and again, more than any other prophet except Muhammad himself. The Quran tells the Exodus story, the confrontation with Pharaoh, the plagues, the Red Sea crossing, the giving of the law, but it tells these stories differently, with different emphases, different details. Musa is a prophet of patience, of perseverance, someone who faced enormous obstacles, constant rejection, repeated challenges, and kept going, kept trusting, kept obeying. The Quran emphasizes Musa's relationship with Allah, the direct communication, the intimate conversations. Musa spoke with Allah, heard Allah's voice, received revelation directly, but the Quran also emphasizes Musa's humanity, his flaws, his mistakes, his need for guidance. When Musa kills the Egyptian, the Quran doesn't hide it. It presents it as a sin. Musa acknowledges it, repents, asks for forgiveness, and Allah forgives. Later, Musa encounters a mysterious figure, Al-Khidr, the green one, a servant of Allah with special knowledge. Musa asks to follow him, to learn from him. Al-Khidr agrees, but warns Musa that he won't be able to be patient with what he sees. They travel together. Al-Khidr does 3 things that seem wrong: damaging a boat, killing a young man, rebuilding a wall for ungrateful people. Each time, Musa objects, questions, struggles with what he's witnessing. Finally, Al-Khidr explains, the boat belonged to poor people. He damaged it so a tyrannical king wouldn't seize it. The young man would have grown up to grieve his righteous parents. His death was mercy. The wall protected a treasure belonging to orphans who would need it later. The lesson is profound. Human understanding is limited. What seems wrong might be part of a larger plan. What seems unjust might be mercy. Trust Allah. Be patient. Don't assume you understand everything. This story doesn't appear in the Bible. It's unique to Islamic tradition, and it shows a different side of Musa. Not the authoritative lawgiver, not the confident leader, but a humble seeker, someone still learning, still growing in understanding. The Quran emphasizes Musa's role as a messenger, someone sent by Allah to warn Pharaoh, to call him to worship the one true God, to free the enslaved. Pharaoh refuses, hardens his heart, claims to be a god himself, and is destroyed. Islamic tradition sees Pharaoh as the ultimate example of arrogance, of tyranny, of rejecting truth when it's presented clearly. And Musa is the one who stands against that tyranny, who speaks truth to power, who trusts Allah even when the odds are overwhelming. Muslims remember Musa during Ramadan, the month of fasting, the month of revelation, because it was during a month like this that Musa received the Torah on Mount Sinai. 40 days and 40 nights. Fasting, praying, receiving Allah's words. The fast of Ashura is also connected to Musa. It commemorates the day Musa and the Israelites were saved from Pharaoh at the Red Sea. A day of deliverance, of victory, of Allah's power overcoming human might. Musa is honored, respected, loved. His story is recited. His example is followed. His patience is admired. He's one of the greatest of the prophets, a man who spoke directly with Allah, who led a nation out of bondage, who gave them law and guidance. But like in Christianity, Islam sees Musa as part of a progression. The prophets built on each other. Each brought truth. Each called people to submit to Allah. Each faced opposition and persevered. Muhammad is the final prophet, the seal of the prophets, the one who brings the complete message. But Musa came before, prepared the way, showed what it meant to be a prophet, to submit, to obey, to lead with Allah's guidance. 3 religions, 3 ways of remembering, 3 different emphases, but all of them honor Moses. All of them see him as essential. All of them tell his story, teach his lessons, keep his memory alive. Judaism remembers the teacher, the lawgiver, the humblest man who transmitted God's word. Christianity remembers the prophet, the deliverer, the one who pointed toward a greater salvation. Islam remembers the messenger, the patient one, the servant who spoke with Allah and led his people to freedom. Same man, same basic story, different lenses, different contexts, different roles in different religious frameworks, but at the core, they all agree. Moses encountered God. Moses was transformed. Moses led. Moses served. Moses gave his life to something bigger than himself, and 3,000 years later, his name is still known. His story is still told. His legacy is still shaping how billions of people understand God. Freedom, law, justice, leadership, not bad for a stuttering shepherd who didn't want the job. Moses died on a mountain, alone, looking at a promise he couldn't enter. But his influence, that crossed every border, entered every land, shaped every generation that came after. The man is gone. The story remains. And the God he served, still speaking, still leading, still delivering, still transforming ordinary people into something extraordinary. That's how 3 religions remember Moses. And that's how his story ends. Not with death, but with legacy, with influence, with ongoing impact. The burning bush is long extinguished. The pillar of fire has faded. The manna stopped falling. But the memory persists. The lessons remain. The story continues. And somewhere, maybe Moses is resting. His work complete. His task finished. His people safe. His God glorified. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. And more.